What's good, everybody? It's King here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to another form of tier list. It's been a minute since I did one of these. As you see on the thumbnail and obviously on the title, I'm going to be ranking, most likely the title being, ranking all of Mortal Kombat from weakest to strongest, right? Might be too much of a long title, but probably going to be simple with that being said. With that being said, though, this is going to be one of, like a great deal of my longer tier list, but probably a pretty long one. So this might be out of left field, but for y'all who have been long viewers or people that know that I'm a big fan of Mortal Kombat. I have great love for it. I feel like the series should have died off a long time ago. Should have got the plug plugged into another bowl of different bullshit to maybe actually start some electricity. Or in this case, should have got the case of the plug, ripped from wherever it was plugged into the first time, because let's just say that Mortal Kombat has went severely downhill for a very much good deal of this entire run, especially by NetherRealm. But that's besides the point. We're not here to talk about the case of the writing and the substance matter of it. But besides how I feel about that, as like any other case of tier list, in the case of power scale, I'm going to be ranking a bunch of different shit. My plan is to be ranking all matters in Mortal Kombat when it comes down strictly to the ties of the gaming of it. You know what I'm saying? So we're not considering broader comic books or movies, TV shows, and mix other run of adaptations unless they have any canon to the actual mainline source material. I'm going to be ranking all three timelines of Mortal Kombat except for a few exceptions. What is being said being the first timeline, the Midway era, NetherRealm era, and then the case of the third timeline that is tied to NetherRealm but a little bit of M1K. I'm not going to be doing the greater, broader scale of it because this is going to be kind of one of the most hardest videos to kind of like try to explain and tight-knit structure in the best, suffice to say, understanding, because Mortal Kombat's power scaling, mainly in the second to third timeline, is egregiously inconsistent and bad. It's not reasonable at all. It makes no sense. It's very stupid. I'm not going to lie. It's not very concrete sometimes how to actually, scale and take in shit. And this series is all over the place. The power scaling is objectively dog shit. And not just with the power scaling, but a lot of different other supplement of, actual substance and story and, narrative. Because, again, I feel like, Mortal Kombat shit got the plug ripped from itself, you know what I'm saying? A long time ago, like I talked about, it should have got, unplugged from continuing. But besides that, I'm going to try to explain it in the greatest greater means. You see two tiers here. I'm going to explain them. But the first thing I want to go and say, besides all that kind of stuff, is that one, appreciate all the support and love that you guys are giving me. If you are new here, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever the case. We're on the road to 100 subscribers. By the time I'm recording this, we have, 95 to 96 subscribers is being said. So, please go ahead and, support your boy if you would be down to. If you disagree with any of this, you can go ahead and leave your opinions down in the comments, you know what I'm saying, and explain why this is this, or being this case of, like, ignorant on my side or whatever, because I put in a great deal of research. We looked over some things, read some shit, played some shit, replayed some other shit as well to fully congruently, say what I have to say here. And, I'm going to try to, say this stuff as, precise and concise as possible with this being said, be in touch with most common precise as the boy is prone to do. But if you do have any severe case of, disagreement to where you really want to go ahead and spit to me, aka possibly educate me and have a cohesive conversation, you guys already know what to do if you are, fans of this channel. But for newcomers, RP King 3124, capital R, is my Discord. I have other ways to debate. If you do not have Discord, let me know. They are mixed, varied to limited, so we can discuss that in the comments. But my main ways that I could debate you, if not Discord, is Xbox, PSN, and possibly things that you use for work. But, we'll discuss that individually. But if you do, again, have any big, severe disagreements, or even if you don't want to debate, let me know why. And, simple as that, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But enough talking. With that being said, time to talk about this series that is one of my most beloved series, without a doubt, possibly the GOAT of fighting games. Even if, again, I feel like, it should have, been unplugged from continuing for a long time. It should have got the plug pulled. But regardless, for the bottom tier, we have Buns, which should be self-explanatory. All these characters have terrible scaling, all lose, or all irrelevant. They don't have anything concrete to say about them. Even their mixed statements or anything of that sense to give them some little substance of, like, something better doesn't give them any hope to do anything. Like, this is Darius down here. There's an obvious from, the Black Ball, two heads. But he's shit. Baraka across the Netherrealm timeline in the case of MK vs. DC, shit. Aaron Black, shit. Frost, shit. Kano is a notorious jobber. Everyone else here is shit. Any mixed bag scaling is not consistent. Like, even statements about, like, Kotaro and MK9, specific with both of them in regards to MK9, Kotaro and Goro are shit since, like, the case of, this character. Scarlet is not shown outwardly in greater record of, possibly scaling to anybody, and she only loses, she undoubtedly would most likely be shit in the grand scope of scaling. And if it wasn't for, some, prep time context with torturing Jade, she wouldn't be able to do that. Plus, she lost Katana, and Jade is a mixed bag. If we try to be consistent, is relative to Katana. You know what I'm saying? They're 1-to-1. They're a defined pairing, and they're very relative. And, they've been able to fight each other. And the shorty Jade fights people that could give Katana mixed bag a challenge. So, I don't know what you want me to say there. Scarlet is just shit with, technically her past version, such younger self being an accounting, being MK9. Then you have the case for Jade and Sindel's Revians. The same thing goes for Sub-Zero and Queen Katana, aka Revenant Katana. Tanya is notoriously, by all regards, shit in the case of the old timeline, just booty cheeks. But then the next tier above is too powerful / weak to scale. This is a tier of mixed jokes. Proclaim of characters that are mixed bag to scale, don't have proper assessment to be scaled, or deliberately are very weird to try to concretely and concisely, definitively say where they are, because you'll never actually get the capability to do that because it's not very, obviously clear and set, and they're very wacky to put. These characters either lose a lot, can do shit that would showcase the capability to body anybody, but don't use it, or mix all over the place. So, for instance, like Ice Bear, we all know that, like, he's omnipotent, but, this is his first form. It doesn't have any, clear accountings of anything, so, I can't put him anywhere. But jokes aside, we got Cetrion, who's this elder goddess of, fertility, nature, mother nature, pretty much. And she has every right to arguably possibly be over a lot of people, and she only loses to people of reasonable record to beat her, but she loses arguably to people that she has every capability to beat if she really try, or she's holding back, or she's always conflicted, because Cetrion only does what she does because she has to adhere to her mother, Chronica, but she's not very consistent. So she's either like Cheeks, hard to scale to point of, actually getting anywhere, like here in this tier, or there's a tier for literally don't know / no scaling. There's no proper way to scale her, I feel like. Then you have Ermac of Mortal Kombat 10 in Pacific, and this is because of the fact that he has every presumable way to best people, but he either backtracks in it because stupidity, plot armor, terrible, evaluation of scaling for other characters that could just drop him easily, and he just loses. He doesn't have any true qualm to best this and this person of other correspond, capabilities of the similar shit that he's either bested or scaling in comparison. Like, I'm able to scale other versions of him. This version, he should be able to decimate and full on, Sith Lord Danny Phantom motherfuckers. But he doesn't, because he simply put, again, is neutered, nerfed, and doesn't have any true, I feel like, consistent estimation. One hand, he should be able to fodder and violate others. Like Jackie, by, again, comparison to Mortal Kombat 9 Jax, right? He should be able to beat. But he doesn't. And then he can't beat this in this case person. Then he couldn't beat Takeda. He couldn't beat multiple people of different, past. He struggled with Melina for a second, it seemed like, to a mixed regards. And I don't know. I don't know if he doesn't have, like, the same sense of purpose to easily dish out pain as he was in MK9. Because MK9, he only lost to people of reasonable regard besides, Stryker. Because y'all see where I have him. I could actually try to scale this fuck, but I'll just say for Stryker, he doesn't deserve to be where I could try to scale him. Stryker is just audacious, outlandish, power scaling at its finest, but that is what it is. I can't properly scale him. Geras is here because he's either just blatantly retarded / incompetent on actually doing anything, or simply staying to the crop of, like, having all this power but never would actually put it to use. And, there's an argument he would solo have, like, the entire tier list because, he got time manipulation. He's not bound by time to a mixed extent. He's semi-immortal. You would need, heavy context to beat this dude, or plot armor. Because some of the people that he loses to, he should objectively not lose to. There's literally no excuse. So like he could be very powerful, or he's cheeks. So I don't know. Cabal, same thing. Speed, accolades of being all this and this, but never uses it. Don't know. This is only MK11 though. Then Kenshi, young or old, doesn't matter. They lose a bunch, but they have a lot of capabilities to best others. So they have mixed bag. Having the capability to be contingent and do this and do that, but they never do it. Never do it. So that is cheeks. A meat too powerful to scale, possibly. Mocap, this is his first form. There's no probably, statements or a claim to put him where he needs to be. So he's just going to be here. This is Sonya Blade and this man, Johnny Cage, of obviously old timeline and Pacific Armageddon, including the Blaze Amp. They might have some credibility in being somewhat powerful, fighting a Ermac that was fighting them when they were corrupted. The Armageddon intro is very vaguely canon or not, but they don't do enough to really substantiate anything. But I don't like putting them in no skin because they do have scaling. It's just I can't really quantify where it could be. Motaro, as whatever the race is of half human, half horse, and Mortal Kombat 3 has statements of being stronger than Goro and Kotaro both. Being one of the most strongest warriors of Outworld. Shao Kahn saw his formidableness and deemed him most worthy. And Motaro and his race be fighting Shao Kahn like on a daily. They have very contingent fights. Their fights are pretty much akin to the Titanius Kong versus Godzilla's race, or even like just the Kongs versus like the V-Rexes, like in 2005. So like he has a lot of mixed scale to be something, but it's not very quantifiable. Mortal Kombat 3 does not give greater display, and he has a lot of acclaim of being very much powerful this and being that. And as a fucking sub boss slash boss, he's cracked. I have nightmares from this fucker. But yeah, no, like I can't really say where he is, and then he's nerfed by becoming a Minotaur or a Monitor. How the fuck you say that name? Minotaur, I'm pretty sure. Then you have Young Quan Chi, aka MK9. Younger to 10 Quan Chi. He has mixed scaling chain to say that he could harm Raiden or harm someone else or do this and do that. And he was fighting with Shang Tsung and other shit, but either he loses unneedingly to people who shouldn't beat him, or he loses somebody who should beat him, then he gets easily fodderized by somebody else. He's either weakened / seem like he's fucking going through an illness when he gets his ass beat. So, I can't really say where he's at. Then you got MK4 God Raiden, aka this is an Elder God Raiden or Elden God, assistant. This is Raiden when he ascends from his God duties because Elder Gods want him to have a higher place. So hypothetically, he could be, just one below the Elder Gods themselves, but MK4 Raiden doesn't do a lot to really stamp him as anything else. So, I don't really know where to put him. But still, then we have Rain. One second he's saying to Kotal Khan, he could BS this person. He could do this, he could do that, but then can get harmed by bullets possibly, can get put out of commission pretty easily, and get pressurized by people who arguably shouldn't. So there you go. Noob Sidebot, same thing, always loses, but has mixed acclaim of being this and this and this, especially because MK9's Noob Sidebot has decent credit of scaling. He does not. He always loses. This is a what-if version of Baihan and MK10, so it's just a what-if whatever. This is more of a joke, but, this Baihan could be very strong, but he could not. And I actually do scale Baihan, not, the second time on Baihan because he doesn't have anything, right, of greater record. But with that being said, I just wanted to get that out the way because I was going to get into it when I actually got to the bigger, greater deal of the tier list. But just to get it out the way first, I'm not going to be scaling the greater, broader record of M1K, as hypothetically a great deal of people could be in buns or too powerful / weak to scale. Is because M1K's power scaling is so flimsy that I don't care. I don't care for the game. I don't care for Mortal Kombat. Again, I feel like the plug should have got pulled a long time ago. I don't want to be on repetition, but I feel like that's a fact. It is a very dog shit game. Not a very enjoyable one. Disappointing as hell. I don't care for it. The power scaling, again, doesn't make sense. Only the broader, greater creators of, hypothetical pullback from lore that isn't even this timeline, what I'm saying? Because a lot of greater distribution of possible scale and presence of actual precise understanding of the power of these people or what they can do is all accounting for the second timeline, aka the trilogy, Mortal Kombat 9 to Mortal Kombat 11, right? And including that DLC and all the cases and things that come with it, what I'm saying, to actually quantify. So I'm only going to be scaling the grand scope people, the DLCs, and again the trilogy, second timeline of the case of Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat 10, Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath, all that stuff, and whole core bigger reality change and this Kang bullshit that basically comes with M1K. That's where. But yeah, I don't give a fuck about M1K. Regret buying it. Don't care for it. And Mortal Kombat, like I said, should have died earlier. So if anybody wants me, to scale those characters, I couldn't properly. I either don't care. And in a way, this might seem like clickbait getting to this point. But I am going to be scaling a great deal of Mortal Kombat. But I can't actually do all that. It's because I'm not going to do that in general form. But I'm hoping, if you've gotten this far in the greater case of this yap session, that you realize that I am going to be putting in a great deal of, work mixed bag of also scaling chain with all these characters to get them to a good quantifiability, right? But regardless, though, I appreciate you watching the video this far, whatever, what is being said. But moving on, we have MK versus DC, Shao Kahn, and Darkseid. They have mixed, claims and comparison to inverse the dark side referencing different shit in his bio. You have Shao Kahn said to be after Mortal Kombat 3, aka the invasion of Earthrealm, so you can try to stitch them on the grounds of whatever you would take from that, so we could scale him to MK3 and then we could try to scale Darkseid to the comics. But it's not very consistent, it's not very complete. I think trying to scale what mixed bag events of different form, because this is adaptations of these characters. MK vs. DC is its own thing, it's its own canon, so I don't think you can actually do that. And then also, you consider the Rage Amp and other qualms of that. It's not very precisely playing, set in form, hypothetically what that's supposed to mean, and also just their statements and credit of what they actually do is not very valid to define. So, I don't really see any real assertion to be made because of that. But then we have Shinnok, which is MK Armageddon Shinnok. So Shinnok sent his clone by his own ending to fight in the War of Armageddon, right? He usually sends his clones. He doesn't do anything for a greater do, right? Because Shinnok technically, canonically in games, only has 6 appearances, correct me if I'm wrong. MK4, MK Armageddon, MK9, he has obviously MK10, he has MK11, and then if we count the DLC, he technically does have credence of, existing if we count the fact that the background has him as a head, but it's already technically in the game, but that's besides the point. That's considerably, if you, talk about that again, I said 6 appearances, but we're not going to talk about that. But, he doesn't actually have any confidential, I feel like, scaling to give him, as this man, Shinnok, doesn't do enough in a broader scale, and even being, amped by Blaze and saying that he's as strong as his clones, how the clones are talked about, they are like lesser versions. We don't know how strong clones of characters are. Because, for instance, Shao Kahn, when he gave his clone the plan to basically be a sitting duck, like when the Deadly Alliance went and seized the opportunity to take Shao Kahn out when he was weak, because Shao Kahn was big, wounded, and down the dirt pretty much by all claim after Mortal Kombat 3, because he literally blew up, right? So, he was very wounded. And Shao knew that somebody was going to try to, prey on him when he was weak. And he got out of dodge because he knew, that could be a possibility. And showcasing that Shao Kahn actually had a brain cell working, you know what I'm saying? And with that being said, he portrayed somebody that was in a weak opportunity, even though it was, excuse me, this nigga Onaga, right? And he, put him out of commission to seize power. His clone, by all record, was not as strong as him. It is always mixed narratively said. It is verbatim showing mixed stuff. And if you want to consider the Armageddon intro canon, Shao Kahn is stronger than Shao and Quan Chi, and it can never actually stand to him. They killed a clone that was pretty much dollar store version of Shao Kahn. It was not an actual true representation of his power. And how I know that is verbatim said, counted, the fact that, it's kind of mixed, insinuated by all merit. That's not the case. Plus also, it is said to be a weakened Shao Kahn. The narrator, which I feel like is a reasonable source, to say that, like, okay, they went to go ahead and take out a vulnerable Shao Kahn, a weakened Shao Kahn. So a weakened Shao Kahn made a weakened clone of Shao Kahn. Should not either not being strong or not being strong enough or having mixed predators of really care to fight these people would send a one-off clone in his place. And again, my example, someone like Shao Kahn making that clone, or in comparison, this motherfucker Shao Kahn taking out Naga when he was weak, aka providing him poison to drink, or however he poisoned him, because I don't know if it's actually stated how he poisoned him, but that's how he killed him. Right, there you go. Then this is Shujinko at Mortal Kombat Armageddon. We don't know how powerful he got. Shujinko, we don't know how much he took from his amp or what he did. And I feel like it's kind of mixed iffy, and then the Armageddon intro is not canon, and he doesn't really do that much after his own technical game. So, yeah, no, I don't have much to say about him there. MK3, Cyborg Soup, cool, bussin' design. I love this look. Besides, the fanboy of this, MK3 Cyborg Smoke, Bulls of a Planet, simple as that. Our Gatorade boy, this is saying here, that's from what I'm saying? He's going to Kool-Aid your mom. But you're excited, though. Don't have any true scale. They're excited. Takeda, a.k.a. Takeda, regardless of Shirai U or in present MK10, a.k.a. X. I'm kind of always mixed on because he has mixed merit to be something of scale, but everyone he defeats is either cheeks. I can't really quantify, and he either loses a lot, like he loses actually a ton. Like what he did against Hanzo was a mixed claim of like, okay, he kind of did a little bit of something, but they were sparring. Hanzo was not full taking him on in full seriousness, and it's a mixed argument that Hanzo Asashi there was not full running up on him in the same means of general fighting pronto, means that he would be doing with somebody else. He does not have the same means of qualm to fight him on demon time like Quan Chi or standing toe-to-toe against Sub-Zero. He's not in the same procedure of when to really put belt to ass. And he's not even pulling out case of his greater capabilities of, Hellfire, because he still receives that, from his past as being a hell spawn still allows him, to have recession of the case of his hellish powers and capabilities, right? That shit didn't diminish, and he didn't use that. Plus, tied with the Mortal Kombat, X comics and how canon that shit is, because it's kind of iffy and not very consistent. I don't really know where you would actually put him properly. He beat Kenshi, a Kenshi that was holding back and wanted him to just throw out his anger. He was letting him throw out his frustrations, basically allowing his son to piece him up. And then any other account of something, I don't know. I feel like Takeda, like almost everyone here, I can't really give you a strong credit of like where he could be. And again, he was sparring with Hanzo Asashi and reasonably beat him in sparring, but I can't really give you anything else because again, his scaling is so weird and it's inconsistent. It's hella inconsistent. And again, Scorpion wasn't fighting him in full means of prowess, and he still again has, reclaimed to his Hellfire capabilities, and the fiery pits of hell is burning in his veins still. He says reception of that, and that shit doesn't, pull up off in a greater form of that. So that would just demonstrates not only that if Hanzo, aka Scorpion, was fighting him full on one, Takeda would most likely get fodderized and bodied. And there's even an account that if it wasn't for Sub-Zero holding back too, it's going to pop over to the Lin Kuei one time. If it wasn't for Sub-Zero and mixed bag to Lin Kuei giving him a hard enough fight, first of all these combat kids, they all got bodied by the Lin Kuei eventually. So, I don't even know where to even start with that bullshit, but we're not going to talk about that. Puts him kind of down, and this is just kind of demonstration that this Mortal Kombat X scale, it don't make no sense. But I'm just hoping that y'all understand that he could be very good, but he could also be very bad. I think there's an argument that if he isn't pulling whole quadruple teamwork with the rest of the combat kids, he's probably shit, to be honest. Then you have Tanya, and Tanya has great accolades and capabilities of hacks and skill. With her Naginata, she'd be fighting with it like it's a power pole. But she gets bodied by Koto. She be a underdeveloped and not well trained or creative, full potential Cassie Cage. And in this case, it's like Shawty is very mixed smile, like the most weird shit, and then mixed comparison to, the Mortal Kombat X comics. It's not really a strong scale. And, her beating Cassie Cage again, undeveloped and not properly trained, full ready for this shit, showing that she was kind of under lay of like great pressure and false commission by this. Don't get me wrong. I know that Cassie Cage has, statements in her bio, multi counts of training and putting a great deal of, preparation and, full season to the matter of her position. But she wasn't properly of under actual credit of training efficiency to go against these other case of matter of people. She doesn't pop into her green sage energy, and she doesn't have reasonable referral to be in this and this and this. So to me, that wouldn't give her any upscaling, especially because it is inconsistent and it is kind of stupid. But Cassie Cage, reasonably by her chapters, should be hella cracked by all mixed reason, especially because there is mixed credit the fact that she can't stand to others that Tanya can't. So, yeah, I don't know. Tremors here is a mixed joke and just trying to give respect to the boy. This man is an earth-bending ninja, and they don't utilize him. One of the most underrated characters in Mortal Kombat. It gotta be because he's brown, bro. But, nah, joke aside, though, it's like, dude is hella powerful, but if we just compare to Mortal Kombat X comics, because that's the only time he does anything, this man can get easily wounded by a bullet and killed, right? I don't know if that actually fully happened. Like, I have read it, and I did see that he got heavily scarred and wounded, but the way it looked, it seemed like he could have been alive, but he could have died. I know that he caused, like, an earthquake, so, that's some good scaling, I guess, but, there's nothing more to really say about him. So he could be something, he could not. Then we have Argus. Argus is the protector god of Edenia, father of Taven and Dagon, and as well Rain is the husband to Dahlia, and is a pretty revered dude. He got killed by Dagon. Was said that if he was not killed by Dagon, he could have tried to help in the invasion of India, but there's most likely nothing that he could do if we go by the rules in case of the, lines of the elder gods, in the case of the penalty to be had if you break these rules, as his realm lost fair and square 10 consecutive tournaments of Outworld, putting down all possible defense, all power, and all case of possible, role in the credit for Adenia's, defense and means of preparation for something. Adenia got smoked back to back. And so with that being said, he couldn't do anything realistically by the rules. Plus also, I'm going to be honest, by all accounts, I think Argus will get fodderized by Shao Kahn, even if it is all the way in the past. So I don't know. He could be really something. He could really be not. He doesn't do enough to really provide that. He did make Blaze, or at least was in creation with Blaze. To pull a lot of work. He did create the dragons. And he did do a lot. But I think you have to kind of be wanking hella hard, I think, because of all this pour of mixed, plot correspondence of, different outer zone type plane of creation and by process of, making a creation of symbolic order like Blaze is going to put him on a new pedestal. Because at that point, you're basically saying that Argus is stronger than Blaze, and I'm never going to agree with that sentiment. Like, you really going to have to, I guess, front page nigga me on that idea, because that don't make no sense. That logic don't make no sense. But moving on, we have the dragons that guarded Taven and Dagon. Now, they're here from the Mixed Clan that they do guard them. They are supposed to be the protectors. They are supposed to be put in good standing. They're supposed to make some creative difference. And, they're said to be one of the most strongest dragons, but they don't do that much. They kind of slowly self-decay after their people are let free. I think Dagon killed his own dragon. And then there's a mixed bag if we consider the second timeline. They're able to be easily exploited, experimented on, and captured. So, I don't know, but, they could be powerful, they could be not. MK9 Motaro kills Johnny Cage in a hypothetical in reference to Mortal Kombat 3, where that did happen. Motaro did kill Johnny Cage. But the thing is that when he was about to kill Johnny, Raiden struck him down with lightning, right? Stunned him, and then literally one-shot him, said that, "Adibaraye!" and then speared him for the fucking bridge, and that man got fodderized. He most likely got instantly craterized by this, that moment. I'm surprised he didn't turn to Sloppy Joe, right? And to be fair, that's Raiden. That just proves that he's way weaker than Raiden. Raiden could do that to probably everybody. It's just his scaling to Johnny is kind of mixed bag because, like with MK3, we don't know how it happened. How it seemed like he just ran up on Johnny and beat him. We don't know how the fight was going. We don't know what happened. I'm not denying that Motaro's stronger than Johnny. It's just I don't really know how trustworthy it is to give Motaro that much high scaling, especially with what we know and the fact that Motaro doesn't have the same statements or any mix of reference. We just know that he's supposed to be there, and I don't really have any true trust in what Motaro could do. But, if you wanted to scale him, I would understand that. Just me personally, I don't really respect the idea of Motaro being that up. Because you have to understand, MK9 Johnny does have some higher scaling. If we consider what he could do later on, and other credits should buy the record of what he does in MK10 in the past and at the start of the game. You heard? Now, granted, I know that's deeper into his stuff, but you also have to understand mixed bag that MK9 Johnny arguably scales some higher stuff by just using MK11's, plot and concept. So, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you can get really wacky with Motaro. Next, you have Lucifer. Regardless of the version, Lucifer was the protector god or king/emperor of the Netherrealm. He was the, claim of one of the most strongest and very powerful and demonic forces of not just the Netherrealm, but obviously of a lot of gods. And Shinnok, being degraded of his powers as Elder God, defeated and killed this nigga. Now, we don't know how, but, depending on how you scale those statements and proclaims, he could be as something great, but he just got killed by Shinnok. We don't know how. We don't know when. Shinnok then became the emperor / a significant god of, the Netherrealm, took his place, took capabilities of his magic, hacks, all that shit, and became to some significant, form of god of death in the underworld. So, I don't know. Do what you want. Then we have Injustice 2 Raiden, by mixed statements of him being like, taking the role of Dr. Fate and mixed claim to do this and do that and his ending and be a part of Justice League Dark and what he references. Like, he references MK versus DC, he references other events, he references movies and shit. Like, you can make an argument he's basically like composite Raiden, and at that point, I don't want to get into the scaling he could be. I don't really feel comfortable scaling him. He's a little bit of like too much of a mixed bag for me to really try to measure up here in my brain. But even mixed pulse of like, no pun intended with that being said, pulse, a possibly new possible evaluation. I think he could decently measure as a pretty high tier dude, but I think where I put Injustice 2 Sub-Zero is more consistent than him, because Injustice 2 Raiden just doesn't really do that much, and he's just kind of wacky. I don't really have much more to say. Zombie Liu Kang is here because he could possess people and pull some crazy stuff, but isn't in character. He fought with physical beings, and he did give token strength to like Katana, Nightwolf, and try to stay within the confines of the battle and give, best hope and fighting prowess to those on the battlefield, but he just objectively doesn't do anything. And yeah, he's just kind of whatever. Anything that you want to say about him is just kind of headcanon at that point. Then going forward, we have question mark / no scaling. These are characters that either don't do nothing, lose, don't have much knowledge on, cannot scale, cannot quantify, or can't do anything. And this is kind of a thing that wasn't entirely stand critiqued in my God of War, ranking all characters from weakest strongest video, which obviously, in case you guys don't know, I do pull back on a lot of the things that I say in that video. There's some things that I'll, double down on in the grand scope. And, regardless of whoever educated me on it or where the fuck happened, I stand with the fact that a great deal of it I did not know, so I got knowledge check. But if you know more about these characters or whatever to mix, scale and stamp as this and this, that is perfectly fine. That is perfectly reasonable. But let me make this clear. I'm not saying that they cannot be scaled entirely, but more from my perspective, I cannot scale them or I do not know. Now, from the research that I have done with replaying, reading, looking up stuff, looking at wikis, I don't really feel like you can scale these people unless like it just gets entirely inconsistent. I'm going to go to the other side of this. And just look at this. I don't know what you want me to do with this. So if you want to go out your way and scale all of this bullshit, go ahead. The entire reason why I cannot scale or I don't know is because there's nothing said about them. Endings aren't canon. They don't do shit. They always lose. They're shit. They're trash. Don't even know who they are. Or I can't tell you something that is so irrelevant to quantify. So if you want to scale this shit, go ahead. I'm not going to waste time on something I don't know, doesn't matter, or isn't relevant. Because let me ask y'all, do y'all really want to know where Dahlia scales? Like, really? I kind of do because she kind of bad, though. But joke aside, though, like, I don't care. I really don't. Like, this isn't no, like, diss to anybody's. I feel like some people, when they see, like, big, like, tiers of that, like, shit they just don't know or no scaling put into it, they think, oh, you just can't scale them, or they don't matter, or, they're weaker, it doesn't matter. No, nigga, I cannot scale them for a reason. I'm going to go back just so, like, niggas can get another read. Like, I'm not going to scale something like that again, doesn't have big credence or presence in it. So, again, no diss to nobody in specific. I just have seen that be a thing with tier lists or some people looking at this or something else. Like, at the end of the day, this is my tier list. This is my perspective on it. It's all mixed bag subjective. I'm trying to give mixed objective presence of, better understanding than most. But you could always try to say, I am wrong. And that's okay. I don't really care. But next we have Derek, who is always seen as the top tier fodder of the verse. So, he doesn't have any actual credence of anything. It's because, like, Sonya Blade's case of survival and shit like that is the kind of thing, and it wasn't for the scenario, Darius would not get over on Sonya. That's the only reason why he won there. Simple as that. Next, you have Baraka here on the bottom left, who got split in half by Kung Lao. This is a service in any creative, actual greater scaling stance. And, like, the only argument that he has to be here is the fact that he could stand toe-to-toe with mixed, decent, matter people of some fame regard, or at least didn't get instantly beat, and has some different cutscenes or his bio saying that, he's stronger than what he was mixed back before. And I would like to hope that he can beat Derek, so there you go. Then 4, Swing a Blade by her scaling chains and mix other account stuff could reasonably get here and do some shit that, they can't. Technology, shit like that. Then this Assassin mofo out of Assassin's Creed itself is here from the stamp that, he's one of the most efficient assassins and thieves in that world, and that's a little bit better than some of the statements and capabilities here and what he's able to do to the regards. I think he fought Dairo, who was the white hair sentinel motherfucker, and he was able to stand to a younger Shijinko and survive, but I don't really know where that stands. And Dairo doesn't have enough scaling because I don't know. I mean, we don't know how that fight even went because, again, Shijinko most time, like, spares everybody that he fights, or, it's not clear what happened. Plus, there's an argument that Dairo is just so shit that you can't really say much. And that's me thinking that's his name. I could be referencing somebody else because I don't remember these fuck niggas, bro. I don't even know this nigga name, right? But then we have Aaron Black, who, is pretty shit, but decently was able to fight some people and stand to them. It wasn't entirely getting body. If he can hurt Rain, has a lot of equipment, artillery, got some statements, mixed bag, does a lot more than what he did in MK11, but there is some MK11 scaling. And Aaron Black is a very, dubiously efficient fighter and person. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. That's just kind of where it's at. You have MK9, place of, like, Reptile in this look. Sorry for the change in camera, right? I was going to say, you have an MK9 Reptile akin to case of, like, look when it comes down to one of his looks and versions, but this is MK Shaolin Monk's Reptile. This is not any form of MK9 Reptile and a reference of that. I just want to say that it's akin to that, or even like MK10's overall case of look, where he has this more mummy, hideous reptilian look. But I'm only going to be having a few MK Shaolin Monk mixed scaling things, and it's only because of the fact that these give better, like, service to different versions of characters that don't have enough claim to this or this or this. But yeah, MK Shaolin Monk's Reptiles here because mix a little bit of scaling to some characters in Shaolin Monks that have mixed merit of this and this and this, and were able to survive hits from other people even if they got, bodied. And his boss fight kind of showed him being mixed relative to, you know, earlier stages of characters. So, yeah, that's kind of it for him. Lee May, badass dime ting, big wifey, has mixed claim of, fending off multiple hordes of outworld forces, pushing back Kano, which isn't that much of a feat. Is a very efficient warrior. By gameplay, got a lot of like technique styles and very efficient with her weaponry, and is a very skilled woman, you know what I'm saying? So I would like to say that, she could be here. I could see our Miss White Reptile could win, but hand to hand, which I feel like reasonably she could get, especially if we put all these people in the equal stats, like sense of, capability of fighting each other, not like equal in all form of like fighting, but in the sense that, it's an equal footing place and an equal stat stick for stick scenario. Like I would say for the most part, this tier right now is that the credit for, them fighting wouldn't be so one-sided, even if you want to say Reptile has more hacks and stuff that could beat her. Because I think her skills would outshow, especially because she's shown to be like a Orchid, one shotty from Tekken, Elena-like shotty, and all bussy things. But simply put, her skill is what's going to get her the win most of the time, I feel like. Baraka from Deception, because of the fact of him growing greater no long strength, he's been able to hurt and actually put back, himself in a greater regard. He's been held decently by Melina, who actually has scaling in the case of the old timeline. He has put in work to pressurize the different, people to be subjugated in Outworld. He's a general of the Cartons. The Cartons actually got better scale and renown. He did scare Shijinko, which might hold something. He does have scaling later to Kung Lao. And he has actually had a rivalry with Kung Lao throughout the old timeline, which I kind of miss, right? I feel like that should have been a thing. But, like, he just has a little bit better credentials to say that, he actually has stacked over time to get her all in efficient standing, to say the least, for the most part. And then next we have Ferrator. This is because of the scaling of hurting, people like Kung Jin possibly, Mix Takeda, Jackie Briggs, stopping someone like Cassie Cage in her tracks. I mean, Shawty legit went for the case of the Kill Bill Green Sage sidekick, and it didn't even stumble him. He is a little bit more concrete, addressment of spatial, scale, this and this, you know what I'm saying? And where this concrete little small little scale of like banging with decent people and then having claims of this, and then if we compare it to the comics, where he was fighting, decently with Kodokan and killed some outworld creatures and different, case of Shokan, which the Shokan are like second to strongest like physical race in Outworld. I think that gives Ferrator a reasonable statement to be right there, tied with, again, the physical strength and getting a little smugs, little scales of, that presence, and whoever Farah is, she could help, what I'm saying, I don't really know what more to say about this little munchkin that probably smells like straight fucking hot dog water. But yeah, I mean, in a sense, for that perspective and scale, I feel like that's where you could probably put him at. But next character to show a whole new presence of strength is MK1, the original Goro, right? Who, has multi-fame of being elite warrior, prince of the Shokan, champion of Mortal Kombat, undefeated for years, beat the great Kung Lao, and that's a little bit greater statements, and, using the original Outworld, perception and how it is. I think Goro would beat Ferrator. Simple as that, right? And everyone else could not beat him. So, yeah, that's simple. Then you have Goro of MK4, who should just kind of be an up form of that, since time scales to a stronger Kung Lao. Then you have MK1 Shang Tsung, who is on some M1K cases, not showing too much, but by the statements of being, obviously the final boss. Greater than Goro, being ex-champion to Shao Kahn, his sorcery, shape-shifting, scaling of that regard, and has said to have a, close fight with the champion of Mortal Kombat for a time, Liu Kang, the case of the Bruce Lee of the verse, who should obviously be up here. I think that gets, both of them pretty set in stone here. Now, Kung Lao here of MK4, has trained stronger, has sparred with great people, has sparred with different people of the descendants of, the line and the family of the great Kung Lao. He's scaled decently to Liu Kang by different halves, and he's, obviously stalemated with Goro, but could have killed him if they weren't stopped by Katana, who made a peace treaty between them, which I feel like how Kung Lao was doing shit to Goro, he could have killed him. Goro could possibly defeat him, but because of the scaling to Liu Kang that has grown way stronger, his accolades, the fact that he's exceeded the great Kung Lao, which to me gives him reason to proclaim to best that, as again, Goro bested the great Kung Lao, but it has been stated old timeline and new that it did have a close fight. He didn't entirely body the great Kung Lao. So, yeah, plus again, I feel like if he did, then the great Kung Lao would not be put in high regard. Like, the great Kung Lao did actually defeat Outworld once in an Earth Realm tournament. Correct me if I'm wrong. He defeated him once, then Goro came in, and then that stopped. And for the record, Mortal Kombat tournaments don't, restart. They take a long time because don't Shao Kahn and them got to wait 10,000 years before coming back, which is actually insane. But yeah, it's like Goro came in, he got the run back, he beat him, killed him, and then he became champion. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like that's a great thing. Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at that point, because, hold on, wait a minute. Shang Tsung was young at one point, then he grew old. I think there's actually a statement that the great Kung Lao beat Shang Tsung. But I don't know how true that is, but we're not going to get into that. That's just at that point me just thinking on that possibility again. But yeah, next we have Goro of MK, Shaolin Monks, who should just be a higher esteem of that. He's bested the entire main cast of Mortal Kombat, fighting people that using statements should have better statements and capabilities than these other people. He was able to beat the brakes off of Kung Lao and Liu Kang and beat the dog shit out of Johnny Cage, ridiculously, bro. But yeah, simple as that. That's really all I have to say. But yeah. Next we have MK2, Shang Tsung, right? That is reformed to his prime. Has a great deal of hacks, greater capabilities of shapeshifting, greater versatility, and, has always been said to be stronger than Goro and is a sub-boss. So, I feel like that kind of gets him verbatim just up there. MK3 should kind of be the same thing. He only has the same statements. Kotaro said to be stronger than Goro, and that's, universally kind of the thing. And, better sub-boss capabilities, and Kotaro is a stronger race of Shokan, right? He's what is the term for, a member of your race that's kind of a, not subspecies, but a mixed, hybrid of shit. He's a hybrid. He's half tiger, half Shokan, but he's a stronger breach of the genetical or just simple existence stand. And I'm not making that up. I mean, simply put, he's been stated multiple times to be this colossal behemoth. He is a former champion of that regard, and he was picked because he's just stronger than Goro. And consistently, especially when I go and talk about his Armageddon version, Kotaro is just verbatim stronger than Goro. That's confirmed. That's said. I think that's consistent, across almost every version of him. But yeah. Next, you have MK2, Shao Kahn. He's the Emperor, defeated multiple people, conquered multiple worlds, magic hacks. He's taught Shang Tsung half of almost everything he knows. And, is in the case of the old timeline version, is the god of Earth Realm, equivalent to someone like Raiden. In this case, he's not the, actual god of Earth Realm, but obviously the protector god, since I said with Lucifer and all them, right? He's the protector god of Outworld. He's the god case of Outworld, basically akin to the god of war. And in regards for, someone like Raiden comparison, again, the god of Earth Realm in comparison, he is this ridiculously beast figure. And MK2 Liu Kang defeated him. He dang near killed him. So yeah, I mean, as simple as that, he defeated him. So explanatory. Next is High Wars. Now, this is where I feel like the tier list gets a lot more objectively debatable. Probably gonna allow a whole new level of disagreement. Sorry for the kind of recording this a little bit later. Hoping you guys been enjoying the video so far, and it's still following along with me. But like I said, this is where the tier list gets a lot more high key debatable. Probably going a lot, a whole new level of disagreement. You know what I'm saying? And when I say this, I don't mean like in a weird slang of like whole lot. I mean in this case of like, because super debatable, I'm probably going to have a whole lot of multiple disagreements to be had, because I can see the disagreements from like a mild way mixed perspective. I'm hoping y'all will at least listen to my perspectives on all these characters to come. And if it's an obvious, put forward greater possible creative, understanding and possibility to be had. But simple place of, disagreement is not a problem. But again, if you always disagree, RP King 3124 at Discord. You know what I'm saying? Right? Not in that technical way, but just that's the Discord, you know what I'm saying? To be looked up in a technical Discord, since it's also like a RP King at 3124 to be looked up on different form of, sites to debate. But we're not going to get into that. Enough backtracking. To go ahead and talk about just the bottom, as always. I just want to say that all these different versions of characters are considering not just their statements, their upscale, their capabilities shown across multiple other forms, but as well the Blaze Amp. The Blaze Amp was said to be in the Battle of Armageddon that every combatant, everybody was being amped and pillared to a new height of power because of it. And so this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the consistency of the Armageddon intro to see if it makes sense. And to me, for a lot of people, it does. But I am going to talk about the inconsistencies or the inaccuracies of what's most possible to happen. But to be fair, this is a very debatable tier list. So again, follow with me here. You know what I'm saying? So MK Armageddon, Baraka was able to show reasonable relativity to someone like Kung Lao, who was able to, best him in full. He was killed by him if we consider Mortal Kombat 9. He showcased great mixed bag prowess in multiple different records of accolades and cases of different acclaim. He was doing his thing for a mass majority of shit, and these niggas was, cracking with each other on multiple mixed regards, and they was standing, decent toe-to-toe and different forms. Baraka was able to take a hit from Shao Kahn, and by Mortal Kombat 9, hypothetically survived that, was rocking decently during crack with people, and the Blaze Amp and show characters to be able to fight people that they regularly shouldn't, or they usually always get bodied by. I mean, Kung Lao is always stronger, you know what I'm saying, than Baraka, but because of the amp, he's not, always out of his league, you know what I'm saying? Again, this man Kung Lao is like always stronger than Baraka. Like, they usually are having one-sided fights, but now they're being contingent. So, I feel like that's a reasonable amp to say that, he's beyond all of them, and he got hit by a stronger Shao Kahn. So, yeah, I feel like that's reasonable. Next is Quan Chi. This is Quan Chi of Deadly Alliance with the Soul Amp tied with the amulet. Now, that's if you think the amulet buffs him. That's not really confirmed unless you know how to use it. He doesn't use it, right? At least, like, not in a battle sense. And the whole idea of the amulet buffing you was a little bit more of a Shinnok thing. But, again, I'm, stay on the path of just blatantly, addressing him instead of possible, semantics of that regard. Even though it's not too much of a stretch, I think it's just more credible on a creditive person that actually knows how to use it. But, to reform, this point in mind, this man Quan Chi was able to beat, to be fair, a fatigued and beaten up Shang Tsung after the fight with Raiden. He was able to do decently to Raiden. He was able to make a lot of, case of constructs and crazy magical shit. He's able to drain from souls. Has a lot of crazy capabilities. He survived the run with Scorpion, Draman, Ogre, fought some decent, credible people, has scale into others. He did push this man, Liu Kang. It's kind of funny to say. It's kind of fucked up. But he did put this man, Liu Kang, on his back foot, right? Because it's a laughable thing just because of, like, the animation, no offense. But it's just the fact that when Quan Chi hit Liu Kang, he made that man seem like he got hit in the back on some Spartacus shit. Like he got twaggled in the back and his spine ricocheted or something. So he did, harm a stronger Liu Kang. Now, don't get it twisted. If Quan Chi fought Liu Kang, especially considering the MK4 scaling, he would get fought right. He would get his ass whooped. Like, they ain't anyone else. But I think, he has enough scaling to say where he can be. Then we have Kung Lao. I think Kung Lao is over here because he killed Baraka, scaled to him, bested other people, fought decent other people. He has trained and hardened his body to the most absolute means of retribution, has been said, to not just get revenge for Liu Kang. He survived a half explosion from Raiden's suicide bomb. He's been able to scale to a lot of decent people and is said to be the strongest of the Shaolin. I do think Kung Lao could all-around defeat Quan Chi. It's kind of debatable because of the hacks, but I do think he can beat him. Now, Catwoman is here because of MK vs. DC and her scaling decent to Sonya and kind of, outbests some mixed regard of people and being, decently form of, fighter in decent regard. Now, there's an argument, even with the Rage Amp and all that stuff, what can she really do? But I think there's an argument to say that she does do a great lot for, what she has and has done, to say she can be here. But I can see Kung Lao beating her through skill. I can see Quan Chi with better hacks, or Baraka with his ferociousness. But I think she has enough credit of what she's been able to fight, the war, the Rage Amp again, and, tie with the fact that, she has her own cool shit up her sleeves and she has 9 lives, so, you never know. Joke aside, though, I think that's reasonable, at least in that regard, but I can understand why you would think different. Then you have Kenshi of Armageddon. It's because of his sword skill prowess, he was able to cut down someone like Shiva. To be fair, if Shiva was not distracted by 2 other people and she had use of her forearms, or they were fighting in a, one-on-one contingent form, I do think that Shiva would have defeated him because of her strength, and she is the strongest female Shokan, is very formidable, and Rage Amp itself. But yeah, I mean, I think simply put, that Kenshi, especially with his telepathic capabilities and a lot of crazy stuff of that regard, his skill, impeccable skill, saucy Jack like shit, this man would be here. Then Quan Chi is here because Armageddon showcasing that he could defeat this man, Kenshi, in hand-to-hand combat in all-around form. Decent sword skill, even without the amp of the souls. Him with the, Blaze amp is pretty crazy, and he does have a lot of soul hacks and shit that would make him be, greater regard. And in case, it might seem weird that I put a guy without that many souls amps over here, is because the souls amp does more for Shang Tsung, which is why I put him higher, and I'm going to talk a little bit more what he does. But you have to understand that Quan Chi, even though he is a user of souls, isn't a master of souls magic like Shang Tsung. Souls consistently do a lot for a lot of characters, and unless you are a master of souls or you utilize souls in a lot of ways, that don't do much. Also, I don't think I need to explain that the Blaze amp is way stronger than the Souls amp, but again, we're not going to get into that. Next, we have, obviously Shiva, who, verbatim from physical strength, who she's defeated, who she's bested, who she was able to put at commission. She fought this man, Nightwolf fought Ermac, who was actually Shang Tsung, both at once, bested Cyrax and was able to fight to great, means and shit. So to me, that showcases very great formidableness, very great strength and skill. But I think you could argue, if they wear her down, they could best her. But I think the Rage Amp and tie with just, statements about her prowess and capabilities, that Shiva at this point is a ridiculous person to fight. Next we have Jax. Considering the Rage Amp and beating the fuck out of Quan Chi for a great deal, he was not having any problems, flinging this man Quan Chi with multiple hands like no other. My man is built like Luke Cage mixed with Victor Drago. He beat the hell out of a skeleton army, and he took a hit from Shao Kahn, survived it, died by a random mix of occurrence thing. I think he got, stabbed on a pole or spear, which is from Dairo. Mixie has, weapons, as you see, that could, full unload on Shiva and the rest of these people. Now I don't know how much that will work because durable skin, hacks, and telepathicness and speed. But I think that would be enough to kind of proceed to allow him to get more possible openings. Now Jade, because of the Blaze Amp and her skill, prowess, and who he's been able to defeat and being said to be one of Adenia's greatest warriors, high key ninja assassin, I think has enough skill, prowess, experience to also defeat these people and get around what they have. She also has a lot of defensive capabilities and a master with the staff, so pretty simple. Melina, same thing. I mean, she's always been accounted to be equal to Katana in almost every way. Has defeated multiple, forces against Outworld, hold her ground as like a form of commander and leader over Outworld forces, defeated a lot of people, was entrusted by Shao Kahn to do decent amount of stuff, is stronger than Baraka, and again should be equal to Katana. I don't really see why not. And again, the Blaze Amp allowed her to do some shit. She was able to hurt Shang Tsung, was able to put the beats on a lot of greater record of people. She was one of the few people that was on the Pyramid of Argus. And yeah, I mean, pretty much shit like that. Katana, same shit, just a revered Adenian warrior. It's said to be stronger than Melina a little bit, but, they're pretty equal. So I guess, you could swap them out depending on how you perceive it. Then Sindel is the Queen of Indenia, has the Blaze Amp, was said to be a crazy enforcer during the MK3, game, / story. Has a lot of crazy capabilities, and I feel like reasonably could get here, especially because she can fly, has a lot of hacks, Banshee Scream. Then you have Deathstroke, who is obviously from MK vs. DC. With the Rage Amp, it's how with the people that he faces, the people that he's been able to stand to decently, and the fact that he can take hits from people that I would say are way more stronger than these people consistently. I would say he could win, but I understand some arguments that Deathstroke and or Joker defeats him in MK vs. DC, and the Rage Amp is a little bit wacky, but y'all need to understand that in that game, Darkseid's rage, being put into Dark Khan, tied with the case of the wild hacks and magic of Shao Kahn, tied with a form of like amp of that presence, would instill them with power possibly like no other. And even though they are both slouches, they are both stooges, they reasonably should be something else in comparison to them. Now I'm going to explain why the people that are above them reasonably should beat them. But again, that is Dark Khan's Rage Amp. Darkseid mixed Shao Kahn shit. I already explained that they're kind of mixed bag to scale, but just considering the statements and pure fact that that's what he's built of, Darkseid's capabilities, the Omega Force, anti-life even, and shit like that is different. Now why, Blaze, Goro, and everyone else is a tie of the amp. Scaling's more consistent, fighting stronger people, and the fact that they did more possibly in the Battle of Armageddon. Goro's gotten way more stronger. He's been able to bang out with Taven and Mixed Bag survive. He was able to fight alongside Shao Kahn, a stronger Shao Kahn, not in power with, the Blaze Amp, but still very powerful. Is still a revered warrior. Shao Kahn puts him in high regard. With the Blaze Amp, and considering what he's been able to do, is still a very formidable record of dude, and has been able to bang out in a lot of one of the most peakish regards of fighting and stand to stand, bang for bang, hang for hang capabilities. So with all that being said, I believe that it's pretty sensible to say that, yeah, Goro could defeat them and defeat all of them. He would just be way too strong and powerful and skilled. He also has like crazy weapons. Nigga got 4 Dows, bro. But then Kotaro should just be simple. He's always stronger than him. Blaze. And he did a lot more work on the battlefield. He bodied the fuck out of Katana. He slingshot it across. And Kotaro dominated a great deal of people. Even though I don't know if we see his body in MK9, he is seen on a greater record of, the battlefield and seemed to only die when he gets jumped. But one-on-one, I think he would easily defeat these people. Plus, Shao Kahn did see more from Kotaro, and he on his Tai Lung shit with this hairstyle and shit, so kind of funny to say the least. Then we have Goro of MK10. Now, the reason why he's more, up there is only if we consider the MKX scaling. Because obviously MK10 Goro, he don't do shit. He literally is dead or has no arms. So, no. But Goro, right, was a behemoth of massive scale. He defeated Kotal Khan's dad. He stood decently toe to toe with Kotal Khan. He was able to capture and best people without forearms. He was a very formidable opponent. He was said to be doing a lot of crazy shit. And the Mortal Kombat X comics try to represent him as being of a lot of wacky creative proportions and shit that make him be a lot more reasonably sense of powerful, tied with his equipment, capabilities, magic, and shit that he's never shown before. That in the comics and mixed description are supposed to be of some higher credit shit that is mixed to be scaled. I think it's reasonable to put him there for now. I don't think it's too out of pocket to say that he, should be there, but it is what it is. Next, we have the case of Frost, who, just considering what she was able to do to after the Lin Kuei, her status as being second to Sub-Zero, her ice skill, I think she could just froze zone a lot of these people and put them out of commission. And even though it was mixed bag, an artifact, the fact is that she has that artifact on, standby that allows her to be basically hell frosting. That basically allows her to become like Killer Frost from DC Comics. I think she would body everybody else, and everyone else either beats her because of skill or because they could outlast her because she'll slowly, freeze herself with it. But I believe that, especially using the logic of Morpheus DC, that mixed bag, if you do get frozen by this shorty, you would have to be physically stronger than what's been given. And using, again, the scaling that she is supposed to be like second to Sub-Zero, then that's why she would be there. Now, why she's not above more is, again, stuff that I'm going to explain a little bit more. Then you have Ashura, who is a very skilled shawty with techniques, experience, capabilities, demonic foreshowing in the case for, the record that shawty has most crazy ninjutsu skills, has crazy ninjago replication, swordplay, saves hacks and capabilities that could just downsize a lot of what other people below her can do and can outlive a lot of people. I feel like she would be very untouchable. She survived the fight with Shujinko, and even though she was getting defeated, she showed relativity to him at a younger age, by the way, like not prime Shujinko. I don't think I need to explain that, especially if you know who Ashura is. But, like, she, acknowledged the fact that how he moves is not a demon, but she was kind of a little bit sure of herself that, okay, I see you. I could probably still beat you, but, you're definitely not what I thought you were. So that's why I put her there. Now we have Chaos Lord Havoc of the Mortal Kombat 10 comics. Now, the chaos that this man is reigning, no pun intended, is crazy. He has mind hacks, chaos hacks of multiple regards. He has manipulation of the body, causality, revolution. He has causality manipulation, has a lot of crazy shit, is semi-immortal, has Kamidogus that are not the same as old timeline, but utilize multiple effects in multiple regards. He has mind hacks to be able to mind control you, can pollute you with false corruption, has crazy vitalities and brutality to be used. But the only way to counter is either you have counters to mind hacks, you are arguably in a different regard of speed scaling to physically stronger, or you have show the capability to push past mind hacks or something of that sort before. But he's kind of mixed bag to scale as how he was defeated. He was defeated by a guy that doesn't even have a claim of either one of those in Scorpion. And he simply put, because it could just be a, unique hack slash, like counter with the character. Like how Wolverine, correct me if I'm wrong, this has a net ability to just give the bird to anybody that tries to mind control him or, flick his mind off basically. But he kind of just did it through full force will, through sheer force of, badassery. He was able to perfect against the odds and just defeat them. So, yeah, I mean, Havoc, I think she just, be here for trying to be consistent. But I could see an argument, that the Chaos Lord thing is kind of inconsistent and it's kind of more bound to plot 1 second introduction, and or he could be very crazy, so he could be in too powerful slash weak to scale. But I think this is reasonable. Kotal Khan, using the comics and in Mortal Kombat 10, Kotal Khan has showed counters to the Chaos hacks, the Kamudogus, mind hacks. He uses some of that in his own right too. There's a partial capability that, even though he's not as much of a master of it like his father is, he's not well versed in it. He is very skilled with it still. He has a lot of hacks of his own, has a lot of counters, has a lot of experience, a lot of skill. He defeated a lot of people, and he's of his reasonable regard. And considering the Mortal Kombat 10 comics and Mortal Kombat 11 past talk and, flashbacks, he did defeat Goro. He did kill Goro's father. He did do a lot of crazy stuff. And he is a very powerful motherfucker. So I think that's reasonable enough. Kung Jin is here because they stalemated. I think they're a very contingent fight. I think Kung Jin has shown very decent and greater relativation and capabilities against others. He's very skilled, very, fly off his feet, got crazy technique, great range, great hacks, creative capabilities, tied with his Kung Lao hat, item, and could pull out of, crazy pull of some Captain America swipe, into this form and slide this thing, is very clean. Tied with him just being a mix of Green Arrow or Hawkeye in the effectiveness and sufficiency in the arrows, corresponding with being so fantastical with the means of like Hanzo, aim, and or byproduct of him being, obviously cousin and family to Kung Lao, can pull out the most crazy record of shit. And even though, obviously, Raiden was just letting him throw out his frustrations, the fact that Raiden, I guess, was even harmed, and the fact that, again, he rocked with Kotal Khan and defeated Ferrator, was rocking with multi-record different people of decent regard. I would like to say that that's a greater thing, and excuse me, I have some of my throat pause. Been talking for a greater deal. But, yeah, man, I feel like that's a reasonable record to feel how it feels, and it kind of might sound like a weird slang, but the whole sway this and sway this in the means of, fighting shows that not just his battle IQ is off the charts kind of, but he's kind of cracked in his movement. He's very agile. So I think, if they kind of prolong the fight and Kung Jin didn't allow Kotal Khan to fully get his hands on him, even though he did defeat Kotal Khan fair and square, it seemed like, by combat. So I think there's an argument that he could go hand to hand with Kotal Khan. He could generally do that, but, again, it's very contingent. It's one of them very debatable fights, to say the least, to mixed regard in a sense. But, yeah, I don't know. Kind of interesting, but all mixed stance, to say the least. But, yeah, the swat this, the sleeve this, you know what I'm saying? It's very interesting, to say the least, about Kung Jin. But that shit ain't going to matter against Mortal Kombat 11, Kotal Khan, to keep it a buck. Now, the reason why is because greater feats, shape-shifting, pull greater hacks, capabilities, statements, and renown. All the, getting the slightest and whatever record of shit, float like water, is not going to be making different robust, different ways against him. You know what I'm saying? Kotal Khan is going to, unfortunately, ocelotl this man and a lot of other people. I just feel like he's not going to be able to do anything of greater, greater means of real actual difference in pound for pound, bang for bang capability. I feel like the only thing he still has on Kotal is agileness, but again, he can shapeshift and pull a lot of creative capabilities that can outmaneuver that. And, joke aside, no repetition, just the swat this and sweep this, it's not going to be making no difference. As the swat, I'm saying, with this being said, is the slang of when a person's moving so dynamically, is like Kung Jin with his bow and arrow with the whole swat, blah, things of that matter, that fantastical shit. It's not going to make a difference because he can literally projectilely counter by gameplay. In both, by the way, but a little bit more with that. Plus, again, this guy fought Mortal Kombat 9 Shao Kahn. Yeah, no, you get bodied there. To be fair, that's not consistent because he gets bodied by him more times than not. But the fact that he did put, beats on him and did something is that. Now, the reason why Noob Saibot MK9 is even here is because he's able to fight Nightwolf and do decent to him. There's credit that Noob Saibot is considered to be one of, if not the strongest Revenant of Quan Chi, just second to Scorpion. Corresponding with like his mixed statements of this better caliber. He has a lot more hacks. He's more consistent than Kotal Khan by off just that record. Because even though Kotal Khan has a great deal of mixed better shit, it's only mixed defined by mixed accolade of like a small minor pitch difference and proportional strength and correctness of like a mixed bag pulling of greater feats to scaling and hacks. Noob Saibot just even being able to fight Nightwolf and give him a fight, and then what he said to do and who he loses to is a little bit more defined making. But to be fair, you could make an argument that Noob Saibot could go higher, or simply put, is too powerful / weak to scale. But I think trying to give Noob some respect, because NetherRealm will not, I think he deserves to be there. Now, Kung Lao defeated him. He defeated Kotaro. He defeated the Deadly Alliance. And is very skilled and was pretty up there. And even though it's just his statement, he would have still lost to Shao Kahn, but he was pretty confident. And Shao Kahn, kind of, was doing the biggest ratty activity there. And I don't necessarily think, like, he was doing it in a way that was not possible to be had. Where in the sense of, like, what he did to him being snapping his own neck, because obviously I'm not trying to dramatize and saying this is what he did, but what I'm saying, to explain is in the matter for the context of it, he didn't do it in such a matter of wild shenanigan pull of some wild, maneuvers to take Kung Lao out, to take him out. He simply did that by base means. He physically just broke his neck. If they were fighting, we have mixed argument for different capabilities to be pulled and how things would have went. There's an argument that, yes, Shao Kahn would have beat him. He probably would have Kratos him and cracked his neck. But I think saying that in mixed bag, that in the proposed difference in fight, and they actually fought hand-to-hand, I think Kung Lao could have did something. Granted, that is my headcanon, but I think the fact of how he was said to be, and the fact that Kung Lao showed decent, great credit of prowess, he was confident fighting Scorpion, he was confident fighting other people, he was confident doing a lot of different greater credit of things, and things of that renown, that would easily give him reasonable sense of, I feel like, peak fighter of a decent regard. Again, it doesn't take away the fact that he just blatantly would get put in out of the tournament regardless if it was death or physical. But I feel like he wouldn't have got just simply verbatim just blamed into the ground. He wouldn't have got fucking pulverized beyond compare. Like, I don't think Shao Kahn would simply just one tap just poke this man and he would instantly get splatted. Right, but I think he would supposedly bring some sense of promise in a fight. But Shao Kahn's whole different matter of pain, smoke, and solidification of menace would have just violated this man easily. You know what I'm saying? He would have X-rayed him and he would be gone. But, I just kind of want to give my respects to Kung Lao and kind of go deeper into the record of, him being something of great credit. But, again, we could never really see that. And obviously, how he got killed, what Shao Kahn did to him was a whole pool of the most wild shenanigans shit, or something out of context or something of that place. He just simply broke his neck in place of, just a unfortunate, ratty activity, pulling up behind him and snapping his neck. That was dirty as shit, bro. That was jaw dropping back in the day. But still, Jade is here because of defeating multi-credited people, a decent record. She defeated Kotal Khan, defeated people at the same time, stalemated Katana, did different credit shit. She has statements like an old timeline of being, one-to-one with Katana, having similar capabilities, and doing great record of shit as a whole. Now, liking the capabilities for, Frost and others, it's just about the hacks, greater scaling, feats, and consistency, and the fact that the Rage Amp, with like someone like Deathstroke, Joker, Catwoman, and a bunch of other people, or the Blaze Amp or Soul Amp, It's mixed varieties of consistency, and I'm trying to construct it in the most consistent way. But Jade, like Kung Lao, Noob Saibot, and others, have better, case of like K abilities and banging out, while other characters kind of mix, fling of whatever. It's not very defined and set in stone. But to, try to conclude in the best, concise way as possible is the fact that Jade, because of her scaling to Kodokan, who scales to this and this, her stance against multi other record of people, what she did at MK9, crack of also, how she stood in different mixed fighting prowess, just in the end with shit, and the fact that Jade was pulling a great deal of crazy shit for the most part, by all record. I would like to say that she reasonably should be here. Plus, Katana puts a lot of faith into her, and she was holding her own in a lot of shit. So, yeah, I feel like that's reasonable, to say the least. Katana should be simple. She bested a great deal of record of people, defeated Smoke and Johnny Cage, was a great hold and renowned K abilities with shit, and even though was playfully getting outboxed by Liu Kang, she obviously took hits from him, did different shit. She defeated Shao Kahn, which was one of the most bogus shits ever, to be honest, but it should be pretty simple. She's here. You could argue if she's stronger than Jade or not. I think it's pretty, fine to say that. Plus, Katana most of the time is stronger than Jade. But, argue that if you want. A debatable fight. But it is what it is. Next is Boraicho. This is him in Deception. This is younger Phil. Boraicho taught the most famed people, is a master of different, techniques and martial arts. He cannot do them because of his age or his weight, but he can do them in unique ways in the form of, K abilities of, the most ridiculous renown, like the Drunken Monkey, Drunken Fist, crazy booming wild shit, Blaze Amp in the future, and just, he's of high renown and deception. He taught Shijinko. He put a lot of crazy credited shit, and Boraicho was in high reveredness for a very long time. Deadly Alliance is him wanting to get revenge without the beard, but with a fucking yogurt neck. God damn, he has no neck. And with a mustache and goatee, and this is his Armageddon look. So, yeah, I'm hoping that's simple. Next is Sonya, which is kind of crazy, but simply put, MK9 scaling and MK10 scaling to be put in consideration. Even in MK11, actually, she defeats Quan Chi, best Scorpion, best Sub-Zero, beat Katana and Jade at the same time, beat Kano, beat in Raiden technically, even though Raiden again allowed her to do that so you can make an opening. She does a lot of crazy shit. It's very powerful. She beat Jax, and the reason why he's above I'm going to explain, but she did beat Jax. And she did take hits from Shinnok. Sonya is just crack. And a lot of that, unironically, is pretty consistent, but it's just shoddy, boomingly ridiculous. So, because of that, hacks and, skill, there you go. Simple as that. Simple as that. With that being said, for the matter of, crackness, because there is an argument for anti-feats, if I guess Shotty couldn't beat Kano. Shotty was getting tortured by him for a half second, but it is what it is. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah. Sabor of, the most full-fledged wild speedster antics, Cabal himself. This man Cabal, to try to most consistently and concretely scale, is very one, obviously for being a speedster, fast. My reference of him being Sabal, right, is being very cracked and crazy with his blades. And it stands for, his capabilities of the most wacky killer of killers, senses of accolades and experience. He defeated Kano. He defeated Cyborg Sub-Zero, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. He was able to defeat Shiva. Didn't get one-shotted by Sindel, but easily got bodied and showed kind of like relativity there before he got killed. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, with that as well, was like doing some pretty crazy shit. He also did defeat Melina and Noob Saibot, but to be fair, there's an argument that he's so fast he could like dance around a lot of people, but Everyone else is either way stronger than him or like has experience against people of like mixed regard or hacks and shit. But yeah, I mean, Cabal, simply put, regardless of my example with his Sabal K abilities, instead of that with Sabal's character from Dying Light, because it's obvious, especially with his hook blades or Nuxia hook swords, right? He is very much a wild dude to think about, but it's mainly his speed that's pushing him. I think if he ever got like strong form like hit by like anyone of greater power or any form of that, he couldn't form any actual movement strongly enough to get out. He's always shown to be undoubtedly a crazy cruiser of shit, and he's more consistent, right? But I think because of his mixed bag AP and the Penai Prestige shit, as I'm gonna get into the Cyborg Sub-Zero shit, he couldn't full-fledged fling about greater means flawlessly hands to the point where he could outdo the mixed durability gap. I think he scales to everybody that's below or in his same box, but like there's an argument if they sufficiently got better sense of matter of like hit with this dude and outdid him, that you don't know. See, because we only see him fight a couple people that are either shit, trash, or have mixed bag scaling. And you guys see where I put Noob Saibot. So he is faster, but he's not so fast that I think like he would just, I guess, like eviscerate them. Like he wouldn't flash them where like, okay, you're not hitting me, it's time to give up. Like I don't think he would just weigh them down. I don't think he would beat them down that much. But I had to say out of anybody that could hit him and get like a good hit the most, they would be lower. Because I do think he does like outspeed a lot of them. But I don't know. That's just me. But the Cyborg Sub-Zero scale is pretty good. But you have to understand that mixed perception that the AI programming is not the original person's programming of their cells. AKA being that when people beat Cyrax as a cyborg, Cyber Sub-Zero as a cyborg, even Cyrax, in the case for MK11 as well, Tywood being Sector as well, because I do mean indifference here, not being, Cyrax, so they're being the same person, but simply put, the fact of being anybody of a cyborg qualm, unless they deliberately have their own actual brain functionality, or is a different result from that, beating Cyrax of MK911, Sector, and even Cyborg Sub-Zero, should Cyborg Smoke, hypothetically, they are AI programmed. They had their own mind, knew how to use their capabilities in a more formidable sense, and weren't being on autopilot, there's an argument that they would beat a lot more people. Now, that's kind of mixed headcanon, but it's because how it's proclaimed that they now actually control their bodies and can formally use it to better whim, and they know how to use their powers, their skills, their technology on a better regard than others. Now, I'm not saying I perceive this statement, but if you think that him beating Cyborg Sub-Zero is not much of a feat because Cyborg Sub-Zero was not reprogrammed to actually reinstall his original mind, because for a long time, Cyborg Sub-Zero, Cyrax, they're basically asleep while somebody else is driving their body. They're not dead, they're not corpse, they're just brain in a robot suit, basically. Now, if you ask me, I think it's a split of both. Yeah, Cyborg Sub-Zero, as you guys will see where I put him, was Cyborg Sub-Zero, as we know he is. He probably would beat Cabal. But I think there's an argument that Cabal could not actually go about besting him more or less the same with or without it, if we go by consistency, because him beating him does not make sense with other shit. But there's an argument that I think they would have at least a close fight, but I think there's an argument as well to say that Cyborg Sub-Zero is just beyond what Cabal could do. But moving on, because it's been on for a little bit too long, this is kind of getting long, but full send, baby. We have Shiva, who beat a lot of people, beat Katana, beat a lot of niggas' asses, you know what I'm saying, and has good renown of being something, and has great scaling for Mortal Kombat 11 and Aftermath and fame of this and this. So yeah, she should win and easily best them there. We have Bihan of the old timeline, And this is considering MK mythologies, all his statements, all his capabilities. He was, hired by Raiden to do deeds that nobody else possibly could. He fought technically some gods of our throne, but there's an argument he fought them in ways more to get around them. He never formally beat Fujin, and the way Fujin was fighting, he was more fighting to just blow him away. He wasn't trying to formally fight him. It goes with the water god and all these different traps and shit. He did beat Hanzo Asashi, right? He did kill him. He fought a clone of Shinnok, and that is confirmed. He fought a clone of Shinnok, and he is a very skilled dude. And he's mainly here saying that because, okay, he stood to this and this person. He has feats of great renown. He could beat the fuck out of Quan Chi. And he is the first Sub-Zero. And he was said to outscale a majority of the Lin Kuei at the time. And he was, chosen for a task that no one else of Earthrealm could do at the time. I would argue that Baihan can be here taking all of this stuff and basically giving him the best benefit of the doubt. But it kind of gets anti by the fact that, okay, he died by a scorpion that just resurrected himself and mixed scaling of that regard and, wacky shit. But I don't know. MK2 Scorpion is here. He killed him. He's stronger. Had a conversation with MK2 Sub-Zero, Kuali Yang. He almost beat him. He retreated. Then MK4 Scorpion will be stronger because he's way more stronger than, his old self. And MK3 talking about, how he got more fueled by the Nether Realm because of all the chaos that was coming in mixed pour of all the deaths, because the Soul NATO was contributed by multiple effects of the Nether Realm, because the Nether Realm was one of the, afterlives, and at that point was the subsequent matter of like the actual, afterlife for people, right? There is a form of heaven / possibly the void, correct me if I'm wrong, but Nether Realm stood as kind of like the be all, afterlife for most people. So because of all the death, he was growing stronger. But yeah, and then MK4 Sub-Zero was kind of beating him in submission, but they possibly could have had a more conclusive fight, but it wasn't because Sub-Zero got melee-whopped by Quan Chi and Quan Chi decided to spill his whole guts to Hanzo Asashi in the most dumbass way. Then that would have happened, and Kuali Yang was more trying to just make it clear, like, bro, for the last time, my brother or me had nothing to do with your family's assassination / destruction. Shut your ass up. Then this is Sindel of Armageddon, right, of a greater record. Now, here's why she's here in difference in comparison. Now, this Sindel is here as a post-mix prop of being a Sindel coming into Armageddon of a greater record, because she is, the Queen of Indenium and doing great things in that regard. But then Sindel here is out here banging with people of greater regard during Armageddon, and has all these different cases of feats and statements being fully powered and by the power of Blaze to do all these different crazy things. There's also the fact that there are statements saying that she could possibly best Shao Kahn. Now, these statements you have to take with a grain of salt because they are just statements, but I would like to say, because of how much, fame, mixed claim of her being empowered by the case of the Armageddon Greater shit, and the fact that these are both mixed deception to Armageddon models, and how she's been shown and held to be a greater record, and the fact that she does have a lot of creative capabilities to best these people by the different magic, weaponry, and capabilities of that sort, and the fact that, she taught Shijinko and did some shit with him, and Shijinko is a very skilled combatant herself, being able to best him almost seem like in fighting, saying that, he has a lot more to learn, possibly, and this is Shijinko at, Pacific points, but it's Shijinko nonetheless. I would like to say that gets her pretty much undeniably very top tier, but I could see an argument saying, no, okay, some people may could best her because they have more consistency. Then there's a Sub-Zero of Deadly Alliance. He should just upscale his 4 self, and the reason why he's over her in comparison with the map for 4 is simply verbatim the fact that time, experience, he's taught Frost and has gained a lot more knowledge. He's one of the peakest case of warriors at this point. He's on a team made by Raiden to be the greatest, I repeat, the greatest warriors of Earthrealm, and has a lot of fame, accolade and exceptional skills to be on this, placement. And this is just him with the case of his full mass means and matter of like deception case look, and should just be about the same, but arguably upscale because of all the training capabilities that make him what he is in comparison, and just the fact that he has a lot more, consistent things, and the fact that he did also teach Shujinko. He also did have a run-in, I think maybe with Taven at mixed bag, depending on how you perceive this look of him. So the fact that he taught Shujinko, he was able to survive a fight with Taven when he thought he was a member of the rival Lin Kuei, the Cyber Initiative, right? And the Netherrealm soldiers. Like, that should just be demonstration enough of all that, right? So I think that's enough scaling right there. Then Smoke should be over from the fact that Smoke was able to help in defeating multiple Lin Kuei. I think did beat Frost once. Was able to fight Taven and did lose. Same goes for Sub-Zero. But Sub-Zero was a little bit more able to stand and be, doing shit. And in case it doesn't make sense and make sound of this, it's like, yeah, you getting beat by somebody doesn't mean you scale anything to them. And that's what I'm trying to make clear. But I'm saying how they got beat. He didn't get pummeled, full-bodied, and blatantly, unequivocally, destroyed beyond compare. It's not like when he beat his ass, this man had no possible, standing to him. Like, it's not like they weren't of any presence of relativity. If you just simply get cracked, embodied by a motherfucker, you can't even have any sense of squabbling with him, then it's just that. If Sub-Zero simply was fighting Taven or Shujinko and had no rocking with him of greater merit, then that's where there's a mixed argument to say that, he simply, got danced around and got fodderized, right? Possibly to a degree. But how he scaled to him, mixed with the Shujinko scaling, I think it's simply put very credible to say that this man, Sub, at this point, tied with mixed scaling to other people, was decent presence of, being pit to pit, having great prick of, great escapades and claim of standing very stylistically on par with that person, and how he talked and cracking with Taven greater record. It was more like kind of unwind of all the case of the shit that he was talking and kind of being on the fence, because he was more fighting Taven out of just caution and panic because his entire fucking clan was getting pillaged. He was feeling Scorpion's worst day, to say the least. But besides that, long ass rant perspective, I'm just saying that, Smoke helped beat him, didn't beat Taven, right? Got more deliberately, fucked over by him and wasn't standing any sense of ground. But the fact is that he helped so much supporting and to show his capabilities to stand over Scorpion, in comparison of the past, right? With how he's been stated to be as being like second to Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero usually beats Scorpion most of the time, even though they are relative. Smoke, right, I feel like would, especially with these upgrades and being a Revenant, could undoubtedly credit, best him in a one-on-one fight. You could make an argument of difference, especially because in the pitch, of possible power difference. Sub-Zero has way more undoubted capabilities to be stronger, but Smoke's hacks and skill and deception endings of being mixed regards of canon does have the possibility to outdo Sub-Zero by all different regards, and has had a showcasing of Delivery getting pieced up by Taven. So there you go. Noob Saibot should be simple, should be stronger than both of them. He showcased the capability to literally be holding this man smokingly dusted in the mix of a fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, Noob is able to hold his little brother, Kuai Yang, a.k.a. Sub-Zero, by the neck like a doll, wrecked his shit like Omni-Man did to the Guardians, ran his entire fucking clan, has multiple clans in the most highest shit, is way stronger than ever, empowered by a lot of crazy shit, and if it makes want to consider Armageddon and Amps, he would be reasonably way more stronger. Now, this version of Sub-Zero has had a capability by showcasing of Armageddon, and you know, in the future in teachings to Shujinko of a greater record, and Shujinko being a part of the Lin Kuei for a time, and the fact that this version of Sub-Zero had a round two and kind of remending of the skills of some students of him, where in this case he taught Shujinko a little bit more and kind of just wanted to better observe his skills and fought him to a decent degree. He beat Frost, which he already technically could do, right? Unless she has the artifact, which he was more just scared for her safety. He wasn't even trying to formally fight her, but, besides the point. And he stood toe-to-toe with them. He showcased capability one-on-one to possibly beat both of these people. It's only in the Deception ending when they both tag team him and him having kind of confliction with fighting his brother that beat him. And he was expecting them, and he was standing close to close on both of their stuffs of, tag team fight. But just because it's 2-on-1 and the fact that it's Smoke and Noob, a defined pairing indeed, he was getting, wrecked. He was getting ragdolled. Mixed rocking with the fact of, the Blaze Amp and mixed consistency of the Armageddon, case of intro and the MK9 intro, which I'm going to explain why, even though, yeah, he did kind of, rapier and outstrike Scorpion and as well, has the account of killing him. I want to make it clear that, one, that's just one showcasing of that. Two, it's not very consistent. Three, again, mixed canon. Four, we don't know exactly how that happened. Plus, MK9 does a lot to contradict the old timeline. So there's an argument that can't even work. I'm going to keep it a buck. But that doesn't matter. He can't beat two people. That is more credence for Scorpion to beat. And the Blaze Amp is kind of vague, I'm not going to lie. But he does have some good scan, like I said. Noob and Smoke, especially with this version being, Noob Saibot and a Cyber Smoke, are like built different creative, warriors with defined pairing like no other. So to me, yeah, I mean, they should just smoke a lot of people, no pun intended, with their capabilities, right? But then we have Real He and Demon Tom Scorpion of mix of Deception to the case of Deadly Alliance. Now, Scorpion was on one for a new means of Black Air Force energy revenge. Knowing that Quan Chi got away, he was ready to kill him. He had a stalemate fight with Shujinko, was able to push around Ashura for a second at least, right? Ashura was trying to go and take out Ermac, I think, for a big spec. Never mind. But, I mean, she reasonably, could fight, Ermac. That's what I was thinking about that. So, I guess that's kind of a mixed bag, feat to consider in consideration as well. But, besides that, there's also creative fact that, he could stand toe-to-toe with, I think Ashura put her aside because of the fact that he was literally going around multi-laying SmackDown onto demons. Draman and the Ogre was able to 2-on-1 them, take down multiple cases of, armies of souls and just got too much overridden. But he's the only guy to survive a soul NATO. He was presumed dead, but was relentlessly and unrestfully pushing past all of the possible, parade and brigade of souls and demonic forces. He has crazy hacks. He has ridiculous will, skill, semi-immortal. He has, a lot of capabilities to pull ridiculous immense matter of power, especially considering the Nether Realm. The Blaze Amp should give him better regard of shit if we consider his greater shit. There's also the fact that, Mix not canon, because this is what he actually looks like in Armageddon. That's confirmed by the Conquest mode. Why the fuck does he look like this? But even considering that, he still did a lot. And he, was beating the fuck out of Quan Chi and did a lot of greater creative shit. And just the fact that he has a lot of these greater capabilities, can pull a lot more. He has a lot more, strong rage pouring through his body to push to get to, the man that wronged him and avenge his clan. He kind of just is like a new level of like drill hunter like presence where anybody who faces him, if they have contingent capabilities, will put, decent, matter of work in. But his undeniable, unyielding rage and fury and credit of the most killer instinct possible will be so sporadic and spiral into a new level of blaze, reasonable amp, but also as well as his own credit of, purifying the means of blacker force energy combatantness that would have people getting eviscerated, outboxed, outstyled, outdone in multi-sense of ways, and just having be undeniably a whole new closing the gap of possible speed, hacks, and other portions of that. Because no one has survived a Sonado, no one has survived the multi-countless brigade and multi-array of shit that he's done. His unrelenting will and capabilities like no other should put him on a whole different stand. And I don't want to sound like a glazer because a lot of y'all, if you guys are fans of this channel, know that Scorpion is my favorite character. But my God, bro, the fact is that this motherfucker is on a whole different record of painful, menace and same time spirit like no other. So I feel like that's a reasonable scale. And, I don't have much more to say from that. Then we have MK3 Ermac, who is the strongest creation of Shao Kahn and has all these entire pool of different soul magic, techniques, capabilities, using gameplay, and being considered to be the strongest weapon of Shao Kahn, even accounting for the Soul NATO and a bunch of other category of shit, and mixed perception on creation, would put on pretty high reveredness, right? And Ermac's always been a dubiously very strong person. The only reason why he would be pulled back in comparison to, other people here in a matter of stand to stand, bang for bang, and other capabilities of that is the fact that even though, yes, he has reasonable statements and consideration for power, he does not actually, probably show it. It does not deter what he can do because, again, taking in his higher scaling, but his presence of actually pulling things to that greater record are very mixed. A lot of what he can do just antis half of the tier and the entire tier list, to be fair, but it's not used on the same format of the greater power stuff. Plus, these people that are above him either have greater scaling or mixed argument, better consistency with like speed or something along those lines. So then you have this man Scorpion here, who works for the Elder Gods, that gave him, the capability to be of great, assistance to them and work under them and promise to have his family and clan give him peace, because you have to understand that his rage boils from a lot of shit, from the fact that his clan, obviously was murdered and desecrated, but the fact that they can't ascend. His clan are forever stuck in a limbo of sorts of being undead, wicked spirits. And so through claiming service to them, they were going to give him the promise to pretty much relinquish that pain, possibly memory of that, and even give him peace. Because he's just this, red, hot, demon time nigga. Which, to be fair, he's a reasonable crash out of all different type of regards. I mean, that would be a whole new level of, demonic, unrelenting force, too, if I had to go for that shit. So, Kratos Scorpion aside, on the case of that shit, him being this undead, fierce motherfucker with gifts and grace and shit and fighting Taven, even though losing, but having great mixed play of, having a true, more definitive Blaze amp that will pose him on a better regard, and the fact that people with a Blaze amp are usually stronger than the general record of people. That doesn't mean you can't beat a person with a Blaze amp. What I'm saying is that all these different accounted things said, the fact that he would realistically upscale all that stuff because he actually, survives and goes after all that stuff, is that these versions can pull that same stuff. It's just that he has better growth into that, and then that therefore allows him to stand on a higher record of capabilities like that. So yeah, that's pretty much why he's there. Now, the case for this version of Cyrax is MK9. I just have his MK10 look because of the fact that I think it's a little bit cooler. It has an interesting case of matter of design, what is being said, but kind of reminds me of a Ben 10 alien with all that's being said. But, that's as simple as that. But with this design right beside MK9, Cyrax has more league record of, reasonable scaling chain and difference to say that he should be here. With him defeating at one point MK9, Johnny Cage, he defeated Shiva and Baraka at the same time. He defeated Sector. He defeated other creative people. He kind of stood to this man Scorpion with Sector by his side, and as well correspond with the fact that Cyrax as a cyborg has a lot of their mixed scaling and their prompt of mixed things to take from, like what he could do in MK11 if you want to talk about the fact that that's the past reasonably. Cognitive also, being a dubiously scary and very powerful individual. I would like to say by all record, with all that scaling to be said and how he's been able to do shit, that yeah, he should be there to some extent. I think even Cyrax, right, from the statements that he was a very fearsome and skilled fighter in the Lin Kuei of the second timeline at start, that puts him at reasonable regard to be here. I also think it's just the fact that, Cyrax is able to fight multiple of the Earth Realm defenders by the end of the game and survive to a decent regard, even though he does lose to like Nightwolf and shit. He was beating some ass at the end a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there you go. That's kind of like where I put him. That being said, so next we have obviously, Smoke, who, because of defeating Cyrax, I think at one point, he defeated Katana at once, right? And that's a little bit more consistent with what's shown with Smoke. He's able to stand to a lot of greater case of regard people. He defeated Baihan, Reptile. He defeated Kano. Has a lot of great different means of skill. Has a lot of creative cool capabilities in his own right. Has a lot of hacks. Has a lot of wacky case shit. And Smoke is very skilled. And his own statements in bio shit, saying that he's of this greater form of force. And even though it's kind of mixed headcanon, he does have a lot of mixed bag, spiritual alignment with the whole Nimra, where the fuck that's supposed to mean shit. But that's why I would put him here. And I would put him, like a bunch of other people you might think, can't be, or this and this person, because, again, the scaling that the NetherRealm timeline tries to provide, the better consistency to be taken into play, statements, and the fact that, his hacks and a lot of his shit is pretty crazy. If we try to, be as sensible as possible, I feel like off the back of what he's reasonably been able to do, plus, he's put in decent high regard by Sub-Zero and shit, and he did do decent credited shit against, the Lin Kuei when they came. He was able to, stack up to Cyrax at a subordinate record of shit there for half a second. So there you go there. And he do stand over some people in MK10 if we consider his Revenant Feast to be a possibility of what he can do. But yeah, I mean, that's just it, to say the least, about him. Then MK9, Ermac is everything about MK3. Ermac, greatest creation of Shao Kahn, taken considerably at that point, but say upscales other shit just as a decent, reckoning of possibly same statements of old timeline to substantiate greater scale that he hypothetically holds, because even though none of the people that he defeats is obviously on the same level with that, I think it's reasonable to say that they're suggesting and equating that same matter of perspective like how old timeline would. And there's no true contradictions with it. And there's no statement that disproves it. So I feel like that's a reasonable definement of that. He beats Johnny. He beats all these other people. Considering the MKX comics that consider some 9 capabilities that are not, I repeat, not trying to be MK10 scaling considered with that, he should reasonably, by all record, deny all possible odds of these people and defeat them. He didn't just beat Johnny, but because of the fact of his, statements about being this and this and this, he should be over countless record of other people. He was able to harm Stryker, which I guess is a feat, because, Stryker beats dang near everybody. And yeah, I mean, I think, he simply put is a very cracked individual in like a lot of regards. So yeah, that's where I would put Ermac, and then his old timeline self of what fucking Deception, Armageddon should be on that. Now, granted, it is Shang Tsung disguised as him, but if we take in mixed canon of Armageddon, just taking in what we know is also consistent with him defeating 6 corrupted warriors. I repeat, 6 corrupted warriors. He defeated almost Katana, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Nightwolf, also trying to pull in the case of Ghost Liu Kang at the same time, because it's kind of funny to think about, but obviously I'm not counting that. But he was also trying to instill Ghost Liu Kang into one of them to possibly derail the corruption, right? So he's fighting a mix of a multiple case of people whilst trying to ward off a spirit into a form of, physical representation. He was trying to sling around the soul of Liu Kang while fighting all these people, right? Man was fighting the case of, I think, Jax, and then the 6, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, could have possibly been Jade. But regardless, he stacks up over multiple credit of the very most decently famed warriors. I mean, first of all, again, using MK3 scaling that he should upscale from, he's already of a peak regard of a man, and defies and entirely dominates almost every different record of people with his ridiculous manner of hacks, skills, capabilities, versatility, and pull very, abstract capabilities in comparison to people. Skill of martial arts is very impeccable. And again, he fought off 6 famed warriors while able to deal with the constant pressure of Liu Kang's soul being lost. So the fact that he was able to do that is pretty crazy. He also was able to dispatch this man, Shang Tsung, right? Most likely if his body and mixed bag soul was not being utilized for something else, right? In this case, in the mix of trying to someone connect Liu Kang stably with someone like Katana, which then allow, I don't know if it's true because it's more of a matter of, headcanon, but I think because Shang Tsung could just shapeshift, he doesn't need your soul to do it, even though souls do allow him to do be a shapeshifting. But he, right, can shapeshift obviously without, but he shapeshifted in specific because of the downfall of Ermac, and he used what is his already physicals to do crazy shit. And the fact that this man, Ermac was able to dispatch Quan Chi down from the case of the Pyramid of Argus and put great work in on motherfuckers and is very strong, I would like to say they undeniably can be here. Also considering the blaze of Argus, himself, and this all his capabilities to be pulled from. I think he's ridiculous to say the least and can be reasonably here. With all that being said, like I said before, red petition, because the nigga not trying to be on back-to-back form of the same thing as I'm really trying to just like instill that mindset, trying to really, evoke the whole standpoint of why him and others are here. It's from multi-compile different shit, and I'm glad I've been able to, decently, concisely say, all what I need to say what is being said, especially because of the time. And I already know that it's a long video, so again, I appreciate everybody that's been watching. This is going to be a lot. But, besides all that, like I said, to rescind my statement, no case of, repetition. Like, I'm glad I've been able to precisely, coherently, and for the most part, precisely go about saying what I need to say. You got me touching, no pump besides when you saw a handsome nigga. But besides all that, again, no like repetition for this. This is wrong with the greater record of this shit, and the most, commonly quote say this is everyone else is when we get into greater, bigger, broad scale of shit for high warriors tier here. We have Jackie Briggs, who was able to defeat Ermac, was able to survive getting almost pummeled by Ferritor or whatever, got stabbed in the chest, has been able to survive, been able to take multiple case of blows, defeated people of decent fame, regard, defeating revenant versions of other characters, has cool weapons, been on a few other record of people, was able to stand to, even though not very credibly define people. We used MKX Comics. She was able to do some decent shit there. And, you know, got some decent comparative skill to others. And I would say is reasonably stronger than Takeda and Kung Jin because of her skill, weaponry. You know, she's one of the most skilled people. Sonya Blade puts her in high regard and renown. And Jackie Briggs is a very, you know, efficient shawty and great A bucka in her own regard. So, yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable scale there. Next, we have Devora when she was young, tied with MKX scaling, mixed with the comics. So, I mean, she was able to decently stalemate against Raiden, who we don't know how much he was going all out. But the fact that Shudder was able to even give this man any sense to a fight is not just ludicrous, but also a great picture, you know, scaling to be fair. Her bugs, her hacks, her flight, her capabilities of most whoppy-doo, crazy mixed bag, you know, skill and efficiency, different arts of like Clancy from Ben 10 capabilities, and the fact that Shawty can literally pull out the Krill from Gears of War if she wanted to and just infest your ass, has a lot of wacky shit, is able to defeat a lot of high case people, able to hurt Johnny Cage at a different point in time, was able to hurt this man, Hanzo Asashi, for a greater record, and is very powerful, has a lot of dubious, crazy, wild case of matter shit. Kill Baraka, kill Melina, doing the fucking most, simply put, and has had statements to showcase this bill over Shao Kahn, and she's been very confident to face a lot of people of multiple record and regards. So I would like to say that, yeah, I'm going to say that by all record that she is, without a doubt, definite, you know, a very strong person, even if it don't make a lot of fucking sense. I mean, it's one thing if you're a very capable fighter, because she has all reasonable regard to be this. Like I said, a lot of whoppy-doo pull, most complex prick and, you know, most Candyman excellence of creepiness, disturbedness, terrifyingness, and even just cruelness, because Shawty is brutacious when she really get on. I mean, the shit that she does, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. This is one vile Shawty right here. But again, we're not going to get into that. Is that she full can auto-ray a bunch of shit that is crazy to think about. And considering the scale in that hand, you know, she's just crazy to fight. I mean, she's just beyond her comprehension. But the reason why Jackie of MK11 is here, which if I can go to another tier, yeah, this is good. Yeah, you're going to see the rest. Yeah, so Jackie is here because of the scaling in MK11, beating her dad possibly, best in multi-different record odds there. She did defeat Devora of a stronger form, but the reason why I have Devora of a stronger form here is because of the consistent scaling that's a little bit more in her favor, which I'll get more to when I get to her. She has a great deal of hacks, upscaling MK10. Her superior fighting style has a lot of crazy capabilities there. Stalemated her dad. Different mixed proxy of like just being a little bit more out there and like scaling. And she has been able to stalemate against some other revenants of mixed stronger perception, like Jackie was able to take some blows from Cabal, which again is mixed scalable, and was able to survive different shit from Liu Kang to a mixed perception. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable scale there. Now, MK9, Johnny Cage is all the way up here because of considering the MK10 scaling, aka younger Johnny, and then considering the case of obviously, you know, the MK11 shit. Now, here's the thing. MK9, Johnny obviously has some specific shit. He doesn't have that much. Johnny beats a lot of people that are mixed fodder or don't matter, and then loses somebody of greater shit, loses again, gets fucked by Sindel, gets pushed aside by Shao Kahn, and obviously gets decimated by Ermac. Ermac humiliates him. But we're considering MK11's stance of saying that he was pulled from the MK2 tournament but accounting for the shit he does there and considering what he's able to do in the case for, obviously his younger self, that would give him more prompts to be here. So even though it's inconsistent, right, and obviously we're going to take anything that he does from MK10 into MK obviously 10 Johnny, because, it's a timeline where I'm not going to combinate, as I'm trying to make it be as consistent of what he's capable to do and to proclaim. I believe that Johnny, because who's been able to stand to of the past and being even to his older self, which is that version tied with this version, is reasonable to say to be here. And he can utilize his green energy power decently in MK9. He has credit of some very wacky, cool capabilities to be had in his own right. He's very fluid, agile, wacky, crazy, cracked, and I think has a lot of reasonable stance to say, okay, he could bang with a lot of these great deal people. Now, there is arguments that they could defeat him because of his cockiness, his hubris, his arrogance. But I believe that Johnny has a great deal of capabilities and pool of things that could give him reasonable proclaim to best these people. And these examples go with, again, he's banging out with a case of, his, obvious older self. His older self does beat him. But the fact that he's able to be around him, he was able to stand toe-to-toe with multi-different collide of different, people of those different regards. He's able to be pretty kick-ass in a lot of different regards. And yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like that's pretty consistent. MK9 Jax would, be over that because he beat him, considering MK11 scaling, mixed variant scaling, if you want to say anything else, standing toe-to-toe with Sonya, able to best a lot of people. He did backstab Johnny, but he did kill Johnny almost. I would say that, he could obviously best his own self to a mixed regard. Possibly best Cetrion, which, again, we don't even know how to calculate that. He best a lot of people. He beat Jade. He beat Shiva. He beat a lot of Shokan. He bested a lot of different greater run of undead people, but I mean, I don't know how much more to really say there. And yeah, I think this is, again, a reasonable tier to put him by all record of the fact that he has great accolades of that. He got hands like no other. Goddamn, them hands are elite. Man got cannons for hands and then got fucking pipe bombs for fists. But yeah, which might seem like a contradiction, but I actually mean like an actual motion of speed, not something different, unequivalent, right? But yeah, I mean, that's where I would put him over Jax. Indicates for over Johnny to a decent record, they're relative, and that goes to other people. Then you have MK10 Johnny, who I think is a very, elite matter of fighter, probably matter in a lot of stands, proficient, multi-different accolades, and is saucy like no other. But he mainly here because, again, defeating a lot of these people, standing toe-to-toe against Shinnok and mixed argument fully with his Green Sage actually besting Shinnok, but obviously he did put the work on him. He was stalemating to Scorpion to a decent regard and was fighting him to a alright case, And depending on how you perceive the quick time events, which, like other games with quick time events are canon, like representations of some different forms of, mess up or relativity, he can buck with him to an extent. He can best a lot of other record of people as well. And with that being said, is this a very, crap motherfucker? So I don't have much more to say besides that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for MK10 Johnny. Now MK11 Liu Kang would just upscale. Kind of decent margin of what he does in MK10, because let me explain MK11 Liu Kang. Like, just using Revenant, it's just not consistent with what he does in MK9, because it's obvious, you see where I put him. He does a lot, but he doesn't really add it up enough. Like, he's beating the shit out of Raiden, but Raiden is conflicted and mix of holding back against Liu Kang, because Raiden feels a lot of guilt and doesn't really want to harm him, right? And he doesn't want to kill him again. Because Raiden literally with one poke of lightning could hypothetically electrocute his ass. he loses the people they arguably shouldn't lose to by the scaling presented, but to be fair, losing to Cassie Cage using the scaling that you guys are about to see makes considerable sense. And then is getting out duked and bodied by other people, and he lost to Jax. He lost to multiple other people. He just loses and loses and loses. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like MK11 to Revenant Liu Kang is like a nerf version. And to be fair, we don't really have true confirmation. But I think some undead versions of characters, unless like you're Scorpion or like some other niggas, bro, I feel like they actually get nerfed. Like I feel like they actually get downgraded of some of their capabilities to do this and this and this. Like I don't know. I just feel like you can't really sufficiently scale MK11 Liu Kang, but he does have scaling to some people. Again, he hurt Raiden, jumped the fuck out of him. He did piece up multiple other record of people of a good regard. He killed multiple cases of different, forces, and he was putting the beats on some other record of people in a decent form. And Liu Kang does have decent accounting and reveredness for doing some crazy shit. But to be fair, with MK10, MK11, I don't know if he really wins that much. But to be fair, I think in MK11 there's a little bit more better ounce of like reasonable scaling here. And depending on the situation, showed from what he can do, he could possibly put some work on, some people. But I can't see it being arguable that he doesn't have enough credence to be here if you really, really critique it. But I think it's decent enough to say that he can beat these versions. But I don't know. And before you say it, like, okay, why do I have some characters below that beat their, older selves? Is because they are not fully, strong on their beliefs, like, MK11 Jax. Or I think there's more consistency. They say that MK11 Jax is stronger than his younger self, and it's because of multitude of things. And I'm going to get to him, don't worry, but I feel like you can't really compare his older self to his younger self depending on how you perceive the whole confliction, maybe making him hold back on his means. Because unlike Raiden, where it's kind of deliberate, they just hold him back to an extent. It's kind of mixed with someone else. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I can really say it from the general sense. But when it comes down to Jackson MK10, again, he defeated Revenant Liu Kang. He bested a lot of other people. He beat Sindel. He hold his own against other record of people. Has decent reputation of some kind, and can I perceive, him in comparison to his younger self, is I would say that Jax is more refined here and stronger, and should reasonably best him, and he has a lot of cool upgrades, and is a very skilled bloke, to say the least. So, yeah, there you go. Simple as that. Sonya Blade of MK10 scaling up over our MK9 shit. Should get, her reasonably here. I think Sonya Blade is pretty much the same as MK11 so because MK11, disregarding MK9 shit, she doesn't do that much. You know what I'm saying? Even though she does defeat Geras and Cabal, which is so weird, but again, we're not going to get into that. All right. She would basically be the same. She's just over her 10 self because experience, gadget sash matter of versatility to be had with obviously all her shit in that regard, and trickle of also just having from gameplay a lot crazier, more shit to pull out. Again, versatility hacks, technology hacks of multiple factors of that. She got a turret, got a fucking EMP, creative capabilities of that sense, and just being older. I would like to suggest she would be a little bit better, but I guess you basically said they're the same, or you can interchange. But yeah, there you go. Johnny is here because they're scaling to a better record of people. Best in sector, multi-case cyber people. He obviously iconically nut punched this man Kano. He's done a lot of crazy shit. Is a lot more, experienced and popping off than others. And best a lot of people of multi-regard. And simply put, is very cold and clean. I like to say that he's over not just his 10 and 9 self because of being older and greater capabilities of that, but just because of the fact that the things that he's done in MK11 to suggest harder scale shit would give him by proxy reasonable, undoubted, possibility of besting them beyond compare. And in comparison with Sonya Blade besting these motherfuckers is again because of the MK9 scale and the fact that she has beat them before, or at least, has stood to them to a mixed regard. So, yeah. But I can see, obviously, him and his wife have a contingent fight, which this sounds like a terrible statement. But, yeah, I mean, I guess you could see it different. I personally, can see it going that way, of him being better, stronger, all that shit. And, he obviously beat his younger self. But, yeah, I mean, simple as that. MK11 Jax not only has better mixed bag experience, weaponry, he has upgraded fists. He used Chronicle's armor, which is said to give you some form of higher durability if you use gameplay. There's crack of also the fact that, again, he was conflicted for most of it. And when he got on one, he was bodying most of everybody and was holding his own against greater regard of people. And is very contingent with his younger self and would kind of secure him a little bit more here. But I think his mixed bag, upgraded seem like fists, armor, weaponry, experience, capabilities. I think he has a lot of reasonable value to be where he is here and outdo a lot of these people. But I don't know. I'd like to say that this is a pretty fair estimate for where he could be, but he could be lower. But I think with all that Chronica stuff considered and his weaponry and consistently being about over Johnny or about Sonya, that he could be there, So, yeah, pretty much it. Next, we have MK versus DC Sonya Blade, who, because of beating a lot of people, like Green Lantern, beating Captain Marvel for a second, which is crazy, and the Darkon Amp, I think is reasonably here. And, she holds good status. She beat Catwoman, hypothetically, so I guess that's something of greater record and just does a little bit more in her world to, I feel like, reasonably constitute something of that regard. And just makes reference to higher shit and the fact that, she stood toe-to-toe with a greater run of these different people. And just, what the verse is given and other people that she's, scaled to and or bested would reasonably get her at that line. So, yeah. Then you have this man, Jax, who was scaled over her from besting stronger people. Like, he beat Wonder Woman. He beat other record of people that try to go and stand toe-to-toe against him, right? He bested Kano. He bested a lot of others with the case of his, Rage Amp self. As, greater weapons and capabilities. And, yeah, simple as that. Then you have Lex Luthor over here, who, because of besting a lot of the greater, stronger people, even though kind of being one-off, like Scorpion, fighting against some mixed regard of other motherfuckers as well, was able to defeat Sub-Zero, Shang Tsung, Green Lantern, Sonya Blade, this man Jax. I would like to say, even though it's kind of wacky, that with his technology, his smarts, and possibly able to call some crazier shit in if we use gameplay, should get him the win. But there's a mixed bag argument to say that maybe he could not. So, yeah, I mean, there you go with that. Then there's Green Lantern. Green Lantern, because of his hacks, capabilities, reference to different stuff in the comics, that, again, only considering the case of this shit, would give him reasons to be about good matter of experience. Reasons would be reasonable, I feel like, enough for him to outdo these people, win, and decisively define the victor and all the overall feel. Then next, we have Devora, who's here because mix of her being empowered by different aspects of Chronica. The fact that she has higher scaling and greater shit to be had because she, even though it is stupid and it's unfortunate, she did have the capability to kill this man Hanzo after the fact, and Hanzo did defeat all of these people. He does have reception of the hellspawn fire breathing in his veins, right? And with all the capabilities that he has, with again the, recoil of the fire skills, capabilities, the fact that she was confident possibly fighting Shao Kahn, even though mixed bag, that's just, general reaction, chronicle statements about her, what she's been able to do, her bio. I don't want it to be the case, but it's kind of most logical. I feel like you could try to scale her, but this could be another argument, maybe too powerful / weak to scale. But yeah, simple as that, and everything I said about her before will stand true. Now that's MK9 Shang Tsung. Now this is considering the Mortal Kombat Aftermath scaling, considering him if he was in his, prime, as when he is younger, he is stronger. So using that scaling and using Aftermath, and that is supposed to be Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat 9, aka the One Tournament. There you go. That is what it's supposed to be, okay? So him being where he is there, that would make him easily be, that bigger and proportional difference as a character. So considering hacks, considering all the scaling he did, considering the people that he beats, considering what he's already done there, he reasonably contingently scaled to Raiden. We don't know what happened. If Raiden, beat the fuck out of him, if he stalemated, what he did. But, I still think Raiden undeniably bested him. He has the same similar statements to the old timeline. He fought Kung Lao. He fought Smoke. He bested some other mixed people. And Shang Tsung, decently by all credit and criteria, did show great mixed bag prowess in a lot of different other sense of shit that, you would get him to decent other qualities. Again, he was out here banging with some instant foes in Aftermath, and again, his younger days would just kind of upscale that, and yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where we're at here. So, yeah, and before somebody says it, oh, characters beat him in his, younger days in comparison, so wouldn't that down for him? Again, we're only considering him being young with all that scaling being said. So if anything, this is Mortal Kombat 11, but will be Mortal Kombat 9. Plus, even then, it's not as consistent as Shang Tsung. It's a little bit more consistent to say that Shang Tsung, to me, is here with everything that he can pull and every capability he has, than saying, okay, so he does all this, so this must mean that they're doing that. I'm not going to lie. At that point, it just kind of makes every character get more bogus to think of. Because, again, if you want to say that, it kind of degrades the consistency of everything that we know of in the cosmology, and destroys a little bit of, like, I feel like any case of, like, logic. The cosmology in Mortal Kombat is so kind of wacky that you can consider this to be a whole different version of Shang Tsung and not be that. But I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt that that's the most realistic, because that's what's verbatim said. I think saying that they're on that same level cuffs is a little bit weird, especially because, again, Kung Lao, by the scaling presented, would not make sense. I mean, this man, Shang Tsung, can't hypothetically beat a more sensitive, stronger Sindel or stand to Cetrion of all people if Kung Lao couldn't, by all different retrospective. So, no, I just don't see that. I feel like that's blatantly preposterous. No. Going further, though, we have Hanzo Asashi in, his human form, considering, the Mortal Kombat 11 mixed scaling, right? So, this is him with recoil of his Hellfire, all his skills, all his experience, considering the Mortal Kombat 10 comics, but him not being reluctant to fight. That's him. Then you have Sub-Zero in his human form, you know what I'm saying? But on the same scuff, they scale relative to each other. They did better than the Combat Kids. They're better than the, new generation. They have a lot of mixed scaling, considering the case of Mortal Kombat, 11 statements about them, considering Mortal Kombat X comics and what they've done in those comics. I think they have enough hacks, versatility, skills, and capabilities to best them. And, considering game logic and all that stuff, yeah, plus, this man, Scorpion, took a deep blow from someone like Devora. And if it wasn't for her catching up to this nigga in a rough, matter of emotional state, aka in this case, her bitch ass snuck up on him, aka catching him lacking, catching up to him in a mix of him trying to, lend hand to his younger self and getting stabbed through the chest. That would not happen. He easily bested her, and so they were fighting formally. That would not happen. So, yeah, I mean, simple as that. I think Sub-Zero, because of him not actually wanting to fight Scorpion and wanting him to, let out his anger, is showcasing that he could have possibly defeated him, but they're very relative. So, again, you can make a case for either one of them winning. Mortal Kombat 11 Sub-Zero is just pretty much upscaling from all that and all the stuff he does there and the people he defeats and, his experience and all that stuff and Revenant shit and Mortal Kombat 9 mixed stuff. But in this version is a hypothetical of if, take Mortal Kombat 10 Hanzo Asashi, and if he was just a hell spawn and consider all the hacks and greater shit, okay, he could take you to the nether realm, grow in power, greater insatiable versatility, semi-immortal, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like that's a reasonable take. Unless you think like that's too what ify, then, I guess just remove this man from your mind. But I think it's a reasonable version. Now, MK9 is here because of the things that he does in comparative scaling with Scorpion. If we go just off of Mortal Kombat 9, tied with the fact that, they're younger and statements to the fact that, they're not as strong as they were with their younger selves, and just the fact of trying to give Sub-Zero better benefit of the doubt and what he's done. See, Sub-Zero has defeated Cyrax, so that his older self and other record of shit is done, right? He has defeated the case of Ermac. He's defeated Reptile. He's defeated Scorpion of Mortal Kombat 9. Now that's where we stop. So listen, I know that, Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 9 using Mortal Kombat 11 scaling does crazy shit. But again, he only defeats him once. It's mixed pair-to-pair plane of difference. And to me, just using what that is, comparison to everybody else, and quick of also just how he's been able to do shit, and mix of also how much of a drastic difference Cyborg Sub-Zero is, I would like to say this is where they could be. Now, this is also another hypothetical. This is Cyborg Smoke. Considering the upgrade of Cyborg Sub-Zero, and Smoke was said to be basically near Sub-Zero's level, this is where I'm going to put him. I know this might be a little bit too wacky, and I'm not going to lie, this might be a little bit of a stretch. This is one thing where I think, I might, pull back on and not double down and say, like, this is a little bit much. But considering the stuff that's been said about this hypothetical from Triborg, right, who's not canon, but what is said from Triborg is consistent to possibly take in. Tied as well with the fact that Smoke was pretty undoubtedly powerful. I know Smoke is way lower, but the fact is that if he ever was turned into a cyborg, and what Raiden feared usually was true. I mean, Raiden basically had precognition memories of timelines and events that were way better than what he did. So Cyborg Smoke in the old timeline was a force to be reckoned with, even though, again, using just, that timeline and trying to mix cross the verses. I'm not going to say that, okay, well, he has to be on the same scuff, no, just saying, like, he would be a problem. So the fact that Cyborg Smoke is seen to be on the same ounce of, problematic as Cyborg Sub-Zero would be, I would like to say that gives great reasoning to say, okay, this is a little bit of a fair sketch, like, portrayal. But again, I would understand that this is a little bit too what ify, because we never saw what this would be like. But yeah, for the record, I also love this Triborg design. Now we have Cyber Sub-Zero. He defeated Kotaro and Goro, easily defeated Kano, defeated Sector, was able to stand paw with paw and beyond multiple other people. He was able to outdo Noob Saibot, was one of the more stronger people, stood decently to Sindel and two getting fodderized. And yeah, got some, I feel like, decent record of scale. And I would say at that point was without a doubt the second strongest dude, and has been said to be way stronger than himself in a general sense, and has a lot of crazy hacks, and is a force to be reckoned with when we use the files about him in MK10. And I feel like this is real. I feel like this is very reasonable, stance for him. Then we have Nightwolf, mix of his MK9 to MK11, because they're technically both the same person. But, by the record of him in MK11 having more showcasings of, mixed versatile hacks, and MK9 mixed with him reasonably having that suicide technique and having a lot of crazy capabilities. He's best a lot of people. He best Noob Saibot. He best different cyborgs. He best different adversaries of that form. And he was the only motherfucker to put in work against Cindy. You see, this is why he Goat Wolf, my nigga. Like, no glaze, bro. Nightwolf was a whole beast, my nigga, bro. Like, this man is top tier. Fucking got that dog in him. That's my nigga right there, my nigga. I don't want to hear nothing. No disrespect to Nightwolf in the comics, bro. Please respect my brother, bro. Peak indigenous warrior right here, bro. But here's the thing. Even with all that, mixed glaze, if Sindel didn't get cocky, it would have just drained his soul formally. He would have lost. He was still getting spanked, and Sindel was kind of laughing his attempts off. And how I perceive it, I think she was just playing around with him. Right? So, yeah, that's what you would consider, retcon, MK11 personality. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I don't think, Shawty would actually allow that to happen. Now, you can say that they would both, kill themselves in a way, trying to, forcefully, basically evaporate each other in this case. Because what happened was, correct me if I'm wrong, was Nightwolf did a sacrificial prayer, pretty much self-destructive absorption of one's soul. She was trying to absorb his soul like she was doing to others, right? Draining them of energy. But he was compounding all type of matter of spiritual alignment into his shit, making a cringe on both of their form of existence. And I think to some extent basically conceptually dissolved themselves. And if you want to say that he could pull that same credit of, possible outdo of her soul magic when it happens, sure. But if she simply was like torturing him and crickled his body one by one, she started, slapping around with his hair, what I'm saying, waving around back and forth in comparison, not Sindel, but just this man, Nightwolf getting multi-concussed possibly, right? Like if she just started piecing him up, using her greater broader magic, using her sonic scream to kind of just pressurize him and pretty much, pull a Ben Wolf and have that nigga get distorted in mind, then use her hair to greater, really hammer home that he's getting bitched and full throttle, use that shit to vanquish him in different cuffs and Medusa this nigga, I think he would be destroyed. You can argue that from his suicide tentacle technique and taking them both out potentially, and that goes for other people if you think some people might have better arguments, that can potentially give him the presence of, being above to mixed perception because she died first before he did simultaneously, it seemed like. But they both ashen themselves in that regards. So I think it only going to happen if she used the soul magic of that regard. And if we considerate what would happen if she wasn't playing around and she just beat his ass like other people, because again, every other combatant she slew in a matter of seconds. It was a fucking execution. That shit was not a fight. Shorty came there just for devious licks of just catching bodies, my nigga. It was a full fallacious matter of just op pack. She was smoking on the Mortal Kombat main cast deliciously, my nigga. Like, it's insane. But yeah, I mean, that's, a lot to say there. Injustice 2, Sub-Zero is here because of his scaling to Injustice Superman and other regards of people there. Taking consideration, the outer scope, power scaling there, greater capabilities within the hacks that he's shown, scaling over Firestorm, most of the Teen Titans, because he's considered to be a mentor to them, even though you don't have to be a mentor to be stronger. But the fact that in mixed training, he's able to combat Firestorm, Supergirl, he's able to do a lot of crazy shit. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a reasonably strong form individual and a lot of what he's able to do. But yeah, simple as that. Freddy Krueger here, considering the Mortal Kombat 9 power scaling, is a dream demon, and through the dream realm, which is technically a made up realm that only exists in contrast to Freddy, even though technically that is basically the equivalent of how he does his deeds of the most, you know, treacherous, horrendous, creditor shit. You know what I'm saying? This man will be acting like a funny, cool, vibey guy and then do the most disgusting matter of snuffing niggas immediately. I mean, this man Freddy is a whole demonic parallax. I'm talking this motherfucker go about doing all cracky code of like the menace to society, class clown, menace to society, and a whole new level of depraved individual. I mean, this nigga like the reverse flash of dreams. And like I said, you know, he would do a whole crack code of this demonic activities. I mean, have you ever seen a nigga stare you down while putting you on a hook in Dead by Daylight? I don't want to hear it. That's besides the point, bro. Like, Freddy Krueger, because of the dream realm, his ending and all credit shit like that, literally had to be fucking battlefield removed by Nightwolf, which took time to be taken away. He grew way more crazily powerful. He took the soul and powers of Shao Kahn and was able to utilize in ridiculous arrays and capabilities along those lines. Now, the reason why he doesn't beat some of these other people, and you can make some arguments for some people below, is because Dream World, if we use Freddy Krueger's, you know, actual own cosmology, is only as powerful as you allow him to be for your own dream. But Freddy Krueger is an insatiably powerful nigga, and mix as well, he can only harm you as much as you are durable outside. And because people have, you know, greater hacks capabilities or, you know, scale more roughly to Shao Kahn or using Shao Kahn and the canonicity of things will have better value. Now, there's some, you know, characters that might have over somebody, even if they are in their own canon being better, but there's things I'm going to explain. So to get to Mortal Kombat 9, Liu Kang, right, aka his MK3 technical sense, right, the better shine my point there, right. There's some, you know, greater things to say for Freddy, but the fact is that because Mortal Kombat 9, Liu Kang, you know, pre his death, was ready to fight Shao Kahn, most likely would have lost, but he beat Shao Kahn. He has great accolades. He beat numerous credibly most high fame regarded people. Is the champion of Mortal Kombat, using a narrative standpoint, was seen by Raiden to be a great dude to win. And he did think that Liu Kang was going to beat him for a great deal of time. And so, with all that being said, I believe using the Dream World's greater record of shit and how that's compounded together in the construction of this mixed bag, the world scope that they could potentially be in, mixed press of also Liu Kang's greater fighting capabilities, hacks, and shit like that, and the fact that I think he's way too formidable for Freddy to put down. I believe that Liu Kang can beat Freddy. I would hope he can. But I can see arguments say, you know, Freddy could beat him. You know, it really depends how you see it. If you think, oh, if I'm in the dream world, I'm basically undefeated and, you know, I conquer all there, even though Shao Kahn did show. So, no. You know, actually, if you think this, go ahead. But I actually think this is an actual counterfeit. Shao Kahn originally, legitly, in all forms of fucking theoretically on some fucking death from Puss in Boots activity, case of reference, literally bitch slapped Freddy when he tried to protrude into his dreams or any matter of like a, you know, spiritual, you know, taking of his being. You know what I'm saying? Like when he tried to jack him of his living and different aspects of that, he intricately dominated those capabilities to possibly pry at him from a metaphorical sense, a mental sense, and spiritual sense, and from there blammed his ass back into a different plane. And he took a arguably non-canon coming to him. And to be fair, that is from the trailer, so you could argue, okay, well, how consistent is that? But from what I know and from what I read, that is the same like basic like answer for how he came to the world. So if he can't beat Shao, which is this version, which we're gonna get to why he's so up here, which might be obvious, he can't beat him on those stances, and Liu Kang was trying to come and do the same thing. I believe that just looking at that, he can't beat them. And the reason why other people can't is because they never showed the capabilities to it. They're not have any, qualm to even scale near him. And, again, Liu Kang actually defeated Shao Kahn. No one else here at this point has, or even scales to him. So, there you go. This is like the reasonable providing of, some essence of understanding there. Then you have Shao Kahn of Mortal Kombat 3, who is ridiculously powerful, an immovable object, right? Who has amps by the Soul NATO, is way more ridiculously stronger, is of ridiculous regard, and has a universal to universal plus amount of power like no other to ridiculous consideration. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to say at that point, he's way beyond the capability of Mortal Kombat 9. Liu Kang, even if you want to consider the credit of, narratively for Mortal Kombat 9's capability to push onto him, I still think it's reasonable to say that MK9 Shao at that point would decisively best him right then and there. It's not even funny. And that's a whole arguable stronger Shao Kahn. I'm going to get into just how strong, ridiculous, the Shao Kahn of general baseness is in comparison, because that's where, again, the whole overall difference comes from. But again, we're not going to talk about that right now. Next, Shao Kahn is a hypothetical like headcanon, but it's more like what Shao Kahn actually was like, in the events of his Deadly Alliance clone being killed. This is his design like shit, but it's basically MK4 Shao Kahn. It's basically Shao in the shadows. And he did recover from what happened in MK3, but he wasn't too undoubtedly distinctly stronger. This is just like for reference. MK3, Liu Kang is here. He defeated Shao. He blew his ass up. So, simple as that. Then here are the elemental gods of Earth Realm. You have the water god, the fire god, earth god. They're interchangeable. I feel like this is how they would be because, record of the water gods, hell is something, the fire god, since the old timeline and across the board has always been held as a very fearsome record of power staying. That's a hail of one of the most profound like deities to be had, or a sense of ascension and power. A fire god for Liu Kang is crazy, but fire god himself as a title is very, hailed. And the rock god, is using elemental logic and the fact that all these gods, including Fujin, all had a fight against Shinnok. Shinnok did kill these gods, later on, but, that's just from that. But Fujin is here because, he's supposed to be one below, Raiden is, a god himself, god of the wind, is crazy, is second to Raiden, he's been put in charge of being the new protector god and crazy matter of, like, god and all that shit, and is the brother to Raiden, pretty much, to an extent. So, yeah, pretty much it there. Shinnok here, this is him pseudo prime. He has the amulet. He's empowered by that. He does all these different crazy shit. He defeated these gods. He's beyond Fujin. He defeated them when he stepped foot in Earth Realm a long time ago. And MK4 was said to be more powerful than ever and basically on the same qualm. Even though I do not like it for multiple creditive reasons, he was said to be dang near on the same acclimates of Shao Kahn, basically meaning he was similar in reveredness of power and record. And even though there's some mixed matter of like inconsistent parallel suppose difference in proper actual acknowledgement for both, scrapping what Shao Kahn does and giving it Shinnok, or degrading Shinnok to keep Shao Kahn a more relevance and not just using consistencies, but because by all acclimates, again, aka credit of like the greater grand scope power possession of Shao Kahn in comparison to Shinnok in the position that he is. Shao Kahn has a ridiculous Wabidu pull power. Tornado and having souls equivalent to a universe, which is infinite, is crazy. But Shinnok is not only a fallen other god, defeated another godlike being in the case for a god of the entire realm. And another realm is bigger Then I think arguably every realm entirely he defeated him, and that is Lucifer. And by all accounts in mixed headcanon, because now we're comparing to the Bible, would be holding that entire realm pretty much in the palm of his hand. And Shinnok has the amulet and all these other statements. But Liu Kang was said to defeat him. You know, he killed him. That was not a clone. He did in fact kill Shinnok. He was resurrected slash reborn in another realm, which is why he looks a little bit different. But no, he killed him. So I like to say that means that he's stronger than all these people. Arguable plot armor, whatever the case. I mean, he's the chosen one. This is the Dragon Warrior. So yeah, he beat him. Raiden has always been mixed narratively said to be stronger than him, and Raiden did for a good time defeat Shinnok, and he did imprison him. He did defeat him. It took a lot out of him, and there's arguably a lot of context, but I think that Raiden reasonably should stay strongly over by all accounts and measurement. Then you have Soul Amped Shang Tsung that's taking into consideration the souls and capabilities and all the shit that he's done to really build himself up. Now, you might say, why even with the soul empathy this much? Is because just himself harvesting the souls and not sharing them with Quan Chi, he could be ridiculous. He was putting work and doing a little bit decent against Raiden. Now, granted, he was getting his ass beat and checkmated by him, and obviously got outdone by Quan Chi, but I believe that Shang Tsung, considering just the full soul amp, his Deadly Alliance bio, and all accounts of what he's been able to do, the fact that he has the soul of Liu Kang, he can pull a lot of crazy record of shit, and has, you know, explored different depths of power, with all that being said, and, you know, has always been trying to do a lot more than what has been shown before. I would give reasonable credit to this. Plus, also, you know, he fought a version of Shijinko that was good matter of, you know, possible being, especially because depending on how you perceive, you know, you wouldn't be able to generally find Shang Tsung because he's in the background with shit, and you can fight this dude at a reasonable better time, which, because he does give you something in, like, response. It's kind of gameplay oriented, but that would give credit, like, okay, you can maybe fight Shijinko, but I don't know. Now, speaking of Shijinko, obviously, you know, this is his base. I would like to say this is very contingent, but it's the fact that Shijinko in base, mixed credit wherever he might be, considering basically post Deception's point before getting his amp, he would be ridiculous, but he doesn't absorb all powers. And using mixed arguments of Armageddon, Shang Tsung, which I'm going to get into, you can give mixed qualm to say that he's right here. Now, Shang Tsung of Armageddon not only has ridiculous pool of different souls, not by amp, but by in general. He is amp by Blaze, has a lot of creative capabilities, is more stronger than ever, is wreaking havoc. He's a part of, you know, the alliance of the most evil, and in Armageddon, because of taking the body of Ermac and being able to shapeshift and pull a lot of capabilities like no other, he reasonably can stand to him. Also, I just want to make this clear that Shang Tsung was one of the people that actually kind of pushed back Onaga. It's not like he was like the only one. All three of their combined efforts could not put down Onaga. What I'm basically trying to say is that Shang Tsung does have a lot of reason more than ever to be of a stronger regard, because Onaga asked him as well, like, he would fodder these people and shit, so I don't even want to hear all that, with that being said. So, like, no. But, yeah, like, this man, Shang Tsung, he was speaking with, like, Shao Kahn as well, in account for, you know, in comparison to Onaga and all that. Like, he was able to dodge this man, Shao Kahn. He was able to actually, like, bomb a bunch of people. He got crazy capabilities and hacks and shit, but he was able to slightly harm Shao. I think he just caught Shao literally slipping, but the fact that his kick did a little bit more damage than what you would expect would be that. Now, how consistent is that? I do not know, and simply put, we don't even know if the intro really is that much canon, but even excluding that, I think there's a lot of arguments that he's here, especially because, again, fighting with these people, fight against others, the Blaze amp and all that. Now, Raiden is here, and he was already literally shown to be way stronger than him, excuse me for my yawn, than these niggas on multiple record. He was seen in a higher sight, and stance, the Shujinko, other people was always said and acclaimed and bios consistently back to back to be the strongest Earth Realm defender, protector, ridiculously built different in all different regards, and just having a claim and capabilities like no other. Corrupted Raiden would just add more to it and argue make him more stronger because he's bloodlusted and he doesn't hold back most of the time and is a just greater wreaking of, havoc and flatlining motherfuckers. But that's, reasonable regards or something there. There's also the count of, him kind of being relative to, the greater running people around the whole, talk of evil and shit, and just doing a lot of things off that regard and back of that shit. Then you have this man Raiden of Mortal Kombat 10. He would be upscaling not his Mortal Kombat 9 sub by using the Mortal Kombat 11 scaling, but upscaling every other case of Revenant, every scaling chain tied to them. He was able to take harsh credited blows from Shinnok and be very injured, but still be beyond. And the fact that Raiden has held back a lot and his greater potential capabilities is not fully shown, I think it's reasonable, bare minimum, some mix stance for who he's beat and who he hasn't to be there. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of like Mortal Kombat 9. But I think it's reasonable to say Mortal Kombat 10 Raiden is, about here. Yeah, reasonably about here, I would say. Then Fujin, because MK11 scaling and statements along those lines is like an old timeline, just beneath Raiden. But someone like Fujin is, in the sense of MK11, a little bit more strong to say this and this and this. Best a lot of people. Best someone with the crown of Chronica to control the souls and pull different things. He's very crazy with his shit. He beat Jax, has a lot of hacks, a lot of capabilities, and I would say because, he's confident and has statements, trying to stand against Raiden of high renown, he should be more powerful than all these. And don't get it twisted, I don't think he would beat Raiden if it was an obvious. I just feel like, he got some, points to say the least. Then you got Scorpion of Mortal Kombat 9, right? And it's only considering the case of, the Mortal Kombat 11 scan mixed with Mortal Kombat 9. Because if not, you'd be a lot more weaker in another form in comparison, just taking what he's done. But by all sense and matter and what he can do, Mortal Kombat 9 Scorpion with the MK11 scaling and all accounts and all record for what he's been able to do, and even considering MK10 scaling, he's able to stand to a lot of the greatest regards of people, defeat a lot of great famed people. He defeated Nightwolf. He defeated multiple other records and accolades of fighters of decent sense of, scaling regard. Like he defeated Cyrax and Sector both at the same time. He defeated Kung Lao. He was able to stalemate against Raiden. He was able to defeat for a half good second against the case of someone like Sub-Zero, right? When he was older, he was able to be relative to Hanzo Asashi. He was able to outdo and outbest. He was even able to take on Liu Kang and Kung Lao both at the same time to an extent, even if he did lose in comparison. But the fact is that makes him, a lot more higher than what you would expect is because he scaled to a Raiden that was Rage Ant by the case of him, looking like chaos, to the most key extent, This man was raging with all red electricity, purifying means of Red Lantern reckoning of power, The purifying pillar of new sense of like vengeance activity. Scorpion at that point would reasonably be, very high in there. Scaling over multiple former Raidens, scaling over multiple past tense, has a lot of crazy hacks, versatility, and capabilities, teachings and or formal advices of his older self, and defeated Dvorak, who obviously, is on that same record and took out multi other credit of, colossal build different people. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that easily should solidify him as that pretty clearly. But yeah, next you have MK11 Scorpion is considering older Asashi mixed with the MK9 scaling because he is over MK9 with the scaling a little bit to be safe. Even though he's relative, obviously he's not like his younger self where he can pull this shit out greater and do what he can do. But considering all that mixed with this hypothetical, Revenant version, taking in the fact that him as a older man, this version is here. But MK9 Scorpion can scale to him and defeat people that either he couldn't or do, which is considerably inconsistent. It doesn't make sense, but it's consistent with the value that he's doing this on a consistent means. He also obviously defeated Baihan. And then MK10 reformed as a Revenant, tied with the case of, him being a Hellspawn / Revenant in case of remember for this. With the reason we get him there, but again, I can understand it's a what if / too powerful / weak to scale. Then you have Mortal Kombat 9 Raiden, who, because all the scaling mixed over to Scorpion, defeating him in the past, having all these mixed acclaiming capabilities, took multiple beatings from Shao Kahn, was confident in possibly being able to defeat him and pull out of him more crazier shit, I think would give reasonable rationale to say that he is not only over almost all record of these people, one of the strongest Raidens, has a lot of crack capabilities, defeated all the Revenants and peoples over almost all the record of these people. He's the God of Thunder, has multiple martial arts skills and capabilities. He's ridiculous. But the man still stronger than him is Mortal Kombat 9 Shao. Now you might say, how is that possible if you think that he's just fodder? Well, here's the reason. Aftermath and the fact that Shao Kahn does bully a lot of people. He does kill Kung Lao. He does wash and just simply case of, the most fly maneuver is the way he did it. That motherfucker did that like he was opening doors and literally blitzed away Johnny and Sonya, right? He was beating the dog shit out of Raiden, was considerably standing still 10 toes against the case of, others. And don't get me wrong, when he was beating the shit out of him, it's another version that's considerably amped by a lot of shit. We're not going to get into that, right? Like, this is technically his considerable MK3-like feel, but this is more like what he could do in MK2 by mixed record of this shit, and considering all his stuff in MK11, to consider it. So, let's just break it down. So, he is stronger than Sindel. He's stronger than Shang Tsung. He beats Liu Kang, Kotal Khan, Johnny Cage, Katana, all these people, best a multitude of niggas, and is just a whole different bringer of pain. That right there should just crack him on a whole different bar scuff of powerhouse and brutal dominator like no other just off of that. So, with all that being said, considering also his hacks and his insatiable amount of strength and martial arts prowess, yeah, I'm going to be honest, he's going to conquer half of the list. And then we have MK versus DC scaling. That is considering that, the references to their scaling, the Darkcom, amp, and who they're able to defeat. Sub-Zero is able to freeze Superman solid. Yes, Superman was feeling weakened a little bit, but, he still bested him. He bested other record of people. He bested a few other creative people in decent regard. He was able to decently fight Wonder Woman. Liu Kang was able to defeat a great multitude of people. And as champion Mortal Kombat, he defeated Shao Kahn, right? And, stood pretty tall. Scorpion was able to defeat, other record of people, able the best person that was able to fight Liu Kang in the case of, standing toe-to-toe against Batman, defeated Joker, was able to defeat Wonder Woman. He was able to give a great stinging blow to Superman, right? Batman defeated Scorpion, defeated Joker, best of multi-different accolades and people, was crazy with his movement and speed, and was able to fight Flash and shit. So, yeah, then you have the case of this man, Shang Tsung, who is, a crazy record of nigga in multiple regards, bro. And this motherfucker, right, has multiple forms of, crazy hacks, defeated Liu Kang, is beyond their comprehension of these people, was able to stalemate decently gets the credit of someone like Wonder Woman and was still ready to fight, but didn't fight her still because of her having reinforcements. Tied as well with the fact that Shang Tsung is a very formidable fighter and survived in the last record of the skirmish. Wonder Woman is a very formidable fighter, defeating Katana, defeating Sub-Zero, being able to avenge herself against other record of people like Sonya, defeated Green Lantern, defeated Jax, technically in a mixed scuffle, was able to defy a lot of different matter of odds, has a lot of crazy hacks and skills, and a very skilled shawty, and has statements of, being, the most skilled pimp. I can't even fucking say this without laughing, but I was trying to say the most skilled pair for pair fighter in the Justice League, but arguably losing to Jax kind of opponent in a whole new level of like balloon burst in a nigga mind with that. Cause like obviously that's stupid, and I already say this scaling being the most egregiously flawed. But how do you in any way, like, with all of your experience, all your lifetime of fighting, references to comics, you have a golden age design. How do you in any capable way get dragged through the mud, buried by this man Jax? It seemed like he squashed her ass in the way he defeated her. Like, Shorty was already blocking all his bullets when he was over here pulling out the minigun like TJ Combo. But how do you get whole full barrel rocked into the ground? Seeming like Shorty legit got laid the fuck out like a nigga in GTA. How do you lose to a guy that literally got 2 refrigerators as right hands? How do you get boxed out by that dude when you got him this most unparalleled perception of skill and credit of, being a most fly off the handles, unorthodox, most skilled, sly, even most arguably, solidification of heroism on different regards than some of the people with how you move and how you fight people, and having the capability to, sympathetically and compassionately best these people without going whole overboard. Like, from what I've seen, Wonder Woman never gets corrupted and full goes over the top in the credit of, the power of dark calm. Like, that shit never full sinks in. And it doesn't disperse the fact that she can use it via gameplay. So I would really say she still has it. She still has the rage amp. But again, how do you get outdone by the case of this bitch ass nigga, bro? Like, you getting out here pummeled by a guy that looks like he be out here doing wax off, wax in with his fucking robotic big ass pauldron arms, bro. Like, it's insane, bro. I'm not gonna ask, bro. It is what it is. Joke aside, though. But next we have Flash. Flash, from just speed, being the Flash, regardless, Barry Allen, Wally West, and Crack of Wall Street, just having crazy capabilities with dark con shit, besting a lot of different foes and people, should win. And, said to be the fastest man alive, has, statements about being a dude of ridiculous regard of speed, you know what I'm saying, and is truly the fastest member alive. Captain Marvel was able to stalemate Raiden, best a lot of great fan case of people, was able to best different matter of odds through Dark Con's case of Amp, and, reference to mixed matter to the comics, has all these powers that he's got like beings, and is very ridiculous and powerful, to say the least. But, yeah. Now, next, okay, I don't want to go that far, but let's see what's happening. Yeah, so to go back to this tier, Gods of High Renown, we have Shinnok, who, even though does get slapped up, the fact is that he gets slapped up by reasonable mixed people again. He was possibly going to still defeat Johnny. He just got reasonably peaked into a whole new level of humble, right? In the credit that he was going to outdo and was showcasing, foreshowing like no other, and was out cracking this man, Johnny and Sonya. Deliberately swapped away Kenshi and Raiden, flinging them away with no problem. This man has all these different regards of, high tier alchemides and scaling and talk that make him, being obviously the man who defeated Lucifer, tied as well being creative as hell with magic and having the amulet, and again only being defeated / pieced up by Johnny. He loses by Cassie Cage, and with that being said, still was battering budding and besting people, and it showcased ridiculous, overpowered imagining of power beyond compare with the amulet. So with the amulet, considering all the case of the statements and Hale, what he's been able to do as an elder god, and again, being a whole different matter of foreshowing of ridiculous regards of power and being an essential full celestial standing of a motherfucker as a god, man moves in the sense of like a god of death Whis out this mug. Elegant and swift and all different, matter of proficient levels of bitchin' niggas. I mean, this man is the most decisive falterer of all time. I mean, you see how this man was catching different hits with one hand, swinging his arm around like a form of crank, clean, swiftly dodge, moving ultra instinct, then kapow! You know what I'm saying? He was moving too crisp with it, So, yeah. I would like to say that easily puts him beyond everybody, and the amulet is ridiculous. The only people that could best him with the amulet is either people who are Vadim said to do it, have even more scaling to do it, or have an amulet themselves. And by what's shown, none of them can do that. And the only person that's been able to defeat him by mixed regard in the past, because it is said that Raiden did defeat Shinnok in the past, like in the old stuff. But with the amulet, which is what we're talking about, because again, look at his face, that is not going to happen. So there you go. MK11 Raiden, he has the amulet, he's corrupted, he's supposed to upscale everything he did in Mortal Kombat 10. And with the amulet, how he said, and his freakish power, how he mixed with confident scale against Shao Kahn and all his capabilities, and what he's shown, taking on an entire army by himself and having crazy capabilities like no other, and said that his corrupted self, his corrupted form, is way stronger than his base self, and taking on the feats and the scaling and kind of doing mixed bag more what if, because we never really saw what he could do. But I think this is a reasonable scale to say this is what he could in all probability be if he really was full using it to the same essence of what he was. Plus, he put the fear of God in a lot of people. So, yeah, that's a reasonable stance, I feel like, for how it could be. Then, it was being said, you have Onaga, who, considering the Armageddon Blaze Amp and all statements and everybody they went against, he was one of the most colossal, terrifying, dangerous, deliberate, unchained menace when he stepped foot back into the mortal world. Betrayed by his apprentice, betrayed by one of his most trusted people. He was hungry to get back the crown, hungry to get back the throne, hungry to reclaim what is rightfully his. Finally stepping foot to put niggas on game with who really run this shit. Onaga was not affected by 3 blasts of one of the most strongest people at the time, was unfazed by a suicide bomb, was a colossal new creational beast, was a brewing powerhouse like no other. Onaga was out here pulling different pack-offs, threatened Shijinko where that nigga started running. He didn't even want to deal with him. And he wouldn't have escaped if, Onaga chased after him, because he only got away because of the fact that Onaga didn't think Shijinko was going to come crawling back to him at his own temple to try to run it up with him. He led Outworld for a very long time. He conquered numerous places. He did multi-dubious things. He mixed bag, might have an amulet for himself, because I forgot who gets possession again, but the amulet of the case of this man, Quan Chi, is with him, so he has an amulet himself, so depending on how you perceive, that amp, which is a little bit more credible on his side, you could say he could do the same shit. He's ridiculously strong. The Blaze amp gives him a lot of assumption of different strength. He has so much strength from regard that this man Shao Kahn did not, I repeat, did not fight him formally. He did not fight him heads up. He had to poison him to kill him. Right, and I don't know what that means. He poisoned him, then he, ran his fake. He started milli-whopping him from the back, pause, or, he just poisoned him and that killed him off, simple as that. We don't know if this nigga Jormungandr this nigga. I don't know what happened. But all I'm saying is that, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's still ridiculously powerful, and considering the Blaze Amp and Armageddon and how he was talking, I would like to say that he reasonably would be way beyond him. Now, Shao Kahn is here from the fact that not just the Blaze Amp, the fact that he got way more stronger. He is pulling a lot of different cases, different, moves of not just reinstating himself as emperor slash king, different, hurls and most powerful force showing and capabilities, and pulling a lot of different moves to kind of seal the deal for him as being a top tier matter of boss like no other. Now, this is one of the most, I feel like, kind of mixed iffy toss up fights more than others, right? So to pretty much, concrete, full slay what my point is in the greatest sense, I feel like, when the like weird matter contingent feel, because that kind of sounds weird to say in that matter of sense, because I never even said saying like that, and this is not just going like in the whole just yap fest kind of with a mixed bag, but like I'm saying what I'm saying, concretely and sensibly. I'm just trying to better properly proceed in the matter of like providing the best form of format to base this on, and all possible creative perspectives, and no repetition, no just rapid session of the same shit, kind of mixed bag of what I'm saying. And again, I'm giving reasonable essence of understanding, what I'm saying, for both, right? And speaking, I feel like truthfully, solidly, and all these means of shit to get you guys to understand this stuff. And I don't want to go, again, on the whole matter of tangent or pull back what I'm saying, because I'm saying all this with a lot of passion and in one take. And it's 5:33 a.m. by the time I'm recording this. But simply to, again, the best, tighten it, this is the fact that this is one of those, most one-of-a-kind fights. And I have a video planned to have both of these two in a team fighting somebody else and their, rival compadre, right? I have the tag team 2-on-2 matter of versus battle, trying to be unique. But I think that this is one of the most contingent, debatable fights in the Mortal Kombat community. At least I've seen. A lot of people debate to this day on who would actually beat each other. It's never directly confirmed. It's never too much reasonableness more on someone else's side entirely. I would say to decline it being very equal. These two are like very close. These niggas are dead even, my nigga. But to kind of like give my full 2 cents and my whole critical conclusion on this, but also want to shout out It's Official. Like, go to his video about Shao Kahn versus Onaga. I think that's a better video, kind of breaking it down on his, especially if you know him, unironic creditive opinion that Shao Kahn could concretely best him. And I agree with a lot of sentiment, but to me, again, to full, close this, is that Shao Kahn versus Onaga is one of the most contingent and big bang for bang fights. They have a lot of equal shit and a lot of capabilities of Shao Kahn could put some pressure on Onaga and possibly weigh him down. But then Onaga's, colossal force showing, mixed skill, and credit of him, being so much of a threat to someone like Shijinko, and proven to be one of the most feared top dogs of all of the realms. Onaga was a name spoken in secret like shit, that it could be very crazy. And simply put, I think Shao and Onaga have a lot of ridiculous form of matters, like of capabilities and scaling, that it would really take a new level of, I feel like, bombastic clash of titans in actual, form of actual fight. You know what I'm saying? Because, again, both of these niggas are ridiculously strong, got crazy capabilities on both sides, got a bunch of great, statements and proclaims and stances against people. They have a lot of crazy hacks, feats, AP, and speed, and all the aspects of that are all equal. And again, there's a lot of different, mixed tick of different perspective takings of this that could tie a whole different knot, on a matter for a person to be killed or heavily defeated. But I feel like in all forms of it, it is, again, a very contingent fight, and there's a lot of different form of perspectives to be taken into consideration in the full conclusion of it. I feel like, as you obviously see here, that I think that this man Shao Kahn is all around way stronger enough to where he could, in the end, outlive this man Onaga, outperform him, bang with him with decent credit of skill. Pretty much rocky, get on the inside, close different mixed matter of distance, and close whatever matter of possible, I guess, gap that you might want to stretch an AP that he could just dominate through the rest of the fight. There's also the fact that he's been more concretely, shown. He's been given more service of feats, better layers of different shit to be had. He's been given better laying of this and this proposable difference in matter of power stand. And just simply put, I feel like there's a lot of things that provide him with a better proposable, stance of a higher grand scope stand to say, yes, I'm out here doing shit that's way more of a greater crop and stand than you, that would give me, in comparison, better leeway, I feel like, from a objective argument standpoint, to say that he wins. Again, don't get it twisted. Again, I think it would be the most, biggest tick of, hardcore Dragon Ball Z level case of fight. I'm talking Asura's Wrath, my nigga. But I still think that, without a doubt, Shao Kahn all around gets the dub over Onaga, regardless of the case. But next here we have God Slayers. Now this is all using mix of just the non-canon MKX only form of, reference material of actual power scaling or, providing of character shit that also goes for MK11 with non-canon and 1K with non-canon. But there is going to be a few exceptions. I'm going to try to explain this as good as possible because we're almost done with this video and I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm not going to lie. What is being said? You have Corrupted Shinnok, as he took the full power of the Jinsei and would be amped to ridiculous, humongous regard and would push ridiculously into high uni and beyond comprehension of the scope of power and ridiculously way more powerful with the amp of the, down to amulet, right? And correspond with just the fact that Shinnok is already crazy himself. But then the Xenomorph defeats him and pulls on more crazy shit from that and his ending, making him to be a force to be reckoned with. Cassie Cage, fully in her case of, Green Sage capabilities, all her feats and accolades, considering mixed comic debut shit, she would reasonably outdo not just the Predator, but obviously she defeated Corrupted Shinnok. Took a little bit of a minute, but post that fight and what she was able to do, she was able to defeat Shinnok and the ending subsequently of what happened to him in the case of obviously, the story mode / case of, Mortal Kombat 10 story is there. So, yeah, Leatherface here did the same thing. He killed Cassie Cage in his thing, right? So that is proof that he could actually defeat her. Jason took out Corrupted Shinnok, but was also able to take out Emperor Liu Kang. But because of taking in the fact that this man, Jason, is a composite, seems like, of a lot of iconic events of his films, but his body seems to be adaptation of, the reboot Jason, the 2013 Jason, right? The newest Friday 13th film, to be fair, which is fucking insane, dude. The last Friday 13th film was 2013. That is crazy. Not surprising, though, to be fair, because, Jason ain't never getting a movie anytime soon. But, yeah, I mean, he seems to be just a reckon of all that shit. So you could basically slap all, at least the movies of Jason onto him. And I think with that being said, him being semi-immortal, hard to kill, vicious, relentless, just a walking, hawking tank, a one-man army, a demolition derby as a human being. He could dominate in full, crack up motherfuckers and could bully Leatherface, brute force through Cassie, and rip the Xenomorph in half. He obviously would beat, Corrupted Shinnok. But in Cassie Cage, because of her greater hacks in the form of tech, more mastery of her Green Sage shit, more seasoned training, she beat her mom. She's the most elite Special Force, agent. She defeated a lot of iconic credited people. She pulled a lot of cool, crazy, mildly not too concrete matter of shit, but by mixed hail from the matter of obviously the case of, the endings mixed perspective would make her undoubtedly the most, peak stand of prowess, with all that being said. And before someone says this, because this is kind of something now I'm kind of just unthinking, about here and there, because I really hope I don't need to really explain it, but I'm kind of tired of having that kind of buzz in the mixed matter of like my neurons and the fathom of like someone really thinking this little and deliberately so self-mindedly ignorant to the credit of the cause and effect for things like this. Yes, this is non-canon representation of this stuff, and you could say that by all credit, because these are obviously fighting game form some material and representation of hypothetical things, that almost everybody could have their own endings in this and this, where you defeat a guy or person a certain way now. But here's the thing. We're talking about non-canon characters, not to the verse, but to more, considering they're also shit of their own actual verse, right? Not characters that are canon, have consistency in that regard, and or accountings of that. And even if they aren't canon, they are at least canon to one sense of storyline that is in credit of acknowledgement to itself. That are own versions, that are own case, a matter of, independent stories and acknowledgement, but to that. So trying to deprive characters of the right to be this powerful in the matter of the inside the world of Mortal Kombat by its own, fundamental stitch of existence, and then trying to also give the same case of, branch of power scaling to characters that do actually exist, are in the fundamental canon, and have more solid, definitive consistency, is not only heavily intellectually dishonest, and again, it's buzzing my head, the hypothetical pride of like BS mindset and like trying to propose unfathomably this deliberate dissolve of any creative, stance for characters to stand on their own 2 feet and trying to complicate things of unneeded pores of shit. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because like we can argue all day if this scaling for these characters makes sense or not. That's fine. But at the end of the day, these are just that. They're non-canon versions. They're just stretch of the matter versions. Like, I don't think I need to explain to you that, yeah, Homelander shouldn't be here if it's actual Homelander. It is not. It's Mortal Kombat Homelander. Stop trying to plaque in a whole new level of, like, this on the case of the actual in source material sense to the same qualm of this. If you do that with that, then guess what? By this form of false equivalence, then multi-character characters that are from mythologies, adaptations from anime, from comic books this, from book this, can be of their true qualm of power or different extensional stand or different capabilities of, this and this and this, because they're not of a consistent merit. They're not the same capabilities of this or other countings of this and this and this form. We are talking about the values of the characters in their own set. We're talking about the values of characters across the boards. And if you are in my comment section trying to argue that characters cannot be this powerful by the form of a value sense in the form of the Mortal Kombat's perception / interpretation of them and their own independent stories, then you are not just simply ignorant. You are arguing because adaptation difference, they are just not the same and cannot be compared, which is stupid, and same time using that in the wrong form and or deliberately delusional, I feel like, to try to downsize the case of a character's capabilities to that. There's multiplications of different characters being on that concept. So there's new curriculum and there's like new, I feel like, no repetition, hating for it. And just simply, you cannot even actually argue any of that. So, yeah, just please don't be in my comment section spraying about more negativity or dumbass instance of, like, misunderstanding of the pure concept that, again, we're not talking about the original individual verse, but accounting of the sense of, their exploits of, like, Mortal Kombat shenanigans, not the actual value for them, right? So, yeah, to continue onwards, we have Triborg, who did the same thing as them, but he has multiple variants, versions, clones, techniques, capabilities, technology, and I feel like would, multi-outsauce and outdo and pull a lot of more sporadic, spiral out of control, warmonger mixed with the case of War Machine drilling and outbesting people on ridiculous regards. But then the reason why I say Predator wins because he gets the full power of the amulet, tied with defeating Crufter Shinnok, and basically has a cosmic laser and destructive capacity capabilities and pull different, pop off like no other case of technology usage. If we consider that the amulet is powering his entire technology, meaning that his hypothetical nuclear, suicide bomb slash dishonor bomb would be a lot more bigger in scope that I would say all these people can't even fathom to escape or survive, with all accolades to be hailed from the case of the Predator movies, and with him a little bit more credibility to the comics with designs, looks, and names in the bio will give him suggestions of ridiculous accolades of skill, capabilities, and things along those lines. And yeah, I mean, I just feel like skill-wise, experience-wise, and all these acclamation of, he could decisively best, all these people. But then add to Pillars of Power is characters on a whole different record of power stand by narrative implication and by proxy by this just simple borderline, different pouring of, power stance, what I'm saying, that they've been in recall of and or stand as in the sense of, their, again, independent creative stories. So let's start with Dagon and Taven. They both have narrative relativity to each other, being both two people that decide the course of everything for the cosmology and stand to each other. Dagon, narratively outdoes everybody by the record that he has been on a war path to find his destiny, to fundamentally, in every creative way, to come with the means of demon time domination effect and everything. Don't worry about that on the right side, and just full going on means of diving into all pillars of best of the best possibilities and growing stronger. So by narrative essence, by Blaze saying that he has grown way more formidable and beyond compared to a lot of people, the fact that Dagon's supposed to be relative to Taven, who Taven, like Shijinko, but way more undoubtedly in the biggest case of, ass whooping effects is Taven is a whole fucking, tank just brocking through everybody, bro. My man's this whole ass, slapping around multiple cases of the people that gets in his way, and has been unlike any other form of combatant where he's surprising revered people, is ridiculously built different in other records and regards. Again, from the narrative aspect, has multi-relishing capabilities and rack of all trades, form of possibilities of power. They're both demigods, of ridiculous hell insatiable, amount of power stand. And just using the narrative argument principle, they should just be a whole new exception beyond the general qualms of the MK verse. Even crossing the verses, they are supposed to be beyond what a lot of people are supposed to be. And they both, having their possible given grace of armor and capabilities, could fight Blaze. So because of that, anybody that they fight that is not Blaze or is not above Blaze, right, cannot defeat him. You know what I'm saying? In the slightest, tied as well with Blaze. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, being man with one of this, not the greatest ounce of like knowledge and like holding weight. I mean, he was created by Argus, a very intellectual man, holds the cosmology of MK at the time in the palm of his hands, and was given all this type of case of full-fledged, chaos and order, stability, prowess, and case of, model off the back of what the combatants of Mortal Kombat's world is going to turn into to make shit happen. They gave, by the decree of the Elder Gods, this being with ultimate insatiable matter of power and stand in the core values of a multiverse, all type of ridiculous resources and pool of information to be had. He was ordered and decorated off the back of creating two of the strongest people of the verse on the stand for who was going to be better or not on the back of formal Mortal Kombat. Setting up for challenge, not being biased, being entirely neutral, and proceeded to, fight Taven and him. You know what I'm saying? Dagon even not beating Taven, because obviously Taven's above him. But the fact that he was so, staying on the back of being the only guy that could possibly defeat him and has the proud capabilities to possibly defeat him, I would say that again, that easily makes that the case. But back to Blaze, again, his intelligence and his knowledge should be remarkably on a ridiculous regards of the most highest order, because of the fact that he was given all type of selection of possibilities for defeat, key abilities, prowess, and things along that. But no, Blaze played this shit out like a prophecy. He wanted to see the ultimate function of Destiny, and he set it up in the case of a formal credit of combat sense. You guys will both fight in Mortal Kombat, and whoever is truly more worthy to wield God power and change the fate of the multiverse, the realms themselves, will do so. But you must face each other. You must decide your fate now. And they both grasped that idea. They both concluded that, yeah, we gotta run the fate of the century. And Taven took belt to ass, and he beat him. He beat this nigga. So simple as that, you know what I'm saying? But then why Dark Khan and all these people are over is a multitude of things. Okay, so let's start with Dark Khan, obviously. Dark Khan is a mix of Dark Side and Shao Kahn. Using the statements and mix of claim and what they are said to be, and how, the Mortal Kombat and DC universes perceive both and their ultimate ridiculous power, how people a little bit more knowledgeable and unraveling of his existence talk about him. He has insatiable power. He distorts both worlds, which have references to obviously multi-consecutive realms. You have the account for obviously the record that, he's able to mess with some form of the DC cosmology that we don't know is on the same exact axis of, the actual DC cosmology, like in the comics, but is definitely, up there on being one of the most ridiculous regards of, power stance. I mean, again, he has, so many accounts and statements of being unrelenting, unparalleled stance of demon bully force, you know what I'm saying? He has crazy amps of, inaccessible rays, immeasurable pool of hacks and capabilities. He is ridiculously strong, and if it wasn't for a combined mix of, uplifting each other from Raiden and Superman, he would have not been beat. And if you wanted to compare like where this stands in comparison like the mixed universe thing, because for what it is, even though they're fated to go ahead and defeat Blaze and will obviously, proceed to possibly do that regardless of whoever wins, that would just easily stamp that being the case of them being, about to the level of a guy that's, easily like, low multiversal to, a good sense of, that mid stand, because like you have a low matter of multiversal hypothetical stand and the credit for how big and all wild forms of the realms are to get to the extension matter of complex multiversal of a ridiculous whoppy do regard. This man Dark Khan distorts both axes of the worlds, and they obviously got infinite universes and multiverse. So I don't know what more I'm supposed to say. I mean, that's, again, insane. So, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I'm making that clear that Dark Khan is insane to think about. They're giving themselves a form of control and boundless power of it. And don't get it twisted. That does not mean that Dark Khan is over, hypothetically, them if they're on this level, because obviously there's a different tier. But that just makes them ridiculous, okay? You have Raiden and Superman, who both defeat him through amp of the rage and just perfecting against the odds. I think Superman is over because of what he's shown more consistently. It's Superman and just how he's shown himself to be like in the case of the fights in comparison. Now this is Shao when he is amp by taking over Earthrealm to an extent by merging the realms and having a great pool of ridiculous amount of power and stand as the elder god like nigga, right? but he's obviously defeated by the avatar of the Elder Gods, Raiden, imbued with the powers of the Elder Gods, of the dragons. And the reason why this is the reason we give rationalization for him to be this up in power is because he was able to laugh off the energy of the Elder Gods that all come through Raiden. He has ridiculous amounts of power taken from that. You know what I'm saying? That would stand him as being one of the most tip of the top scale niggas. And if you want to stretch, you could put them a little bit higher. But I think because there's a short ounce layer of power from him, you know what I'm saying, being shown there, right, was the fact that Amp Shao Kahn, right, is ridiculous for multiple reasons besides just laughing off the Elder Gods, play of power. But supposedly, by all pull of this type of new gravity of power, taking in MK3 like statements and just merging the realm, can grow more and more stronger while being in Earth realm. The more and more that Outworld is slowly merging with Earth realm, the more stronger he gets. So if it's taking place in that scenario where it's like that, depending on who you are, you could not defeat him. And you could also scale the Avatar version of Raiden, aka in a sense being, the Elder God and Raiden, could be a lot more higher. But I think consistently they're here because these other people would be a lot more farther into these scales, and these people are like on about the scale to the Elder Gods from a lot more central scope. But the Elder Gods are hypothetically on a different qualm sense than this, on a greater regards, that have a little bit more raking of like being so higher stasis of, that multiversal higher glimpse that they would outstand, all their hypothetical conception. But yeah, that's just kind of like a breakdown for that. Now, the Fires of Realms, we have Onaga as the avatar of the One Being. Should be simple. Collected all the Kamidogus like Infinity Stones and pulled a big new pillaring of power that made him a whole different matter of foe. He became pretty much a host for undeniably world-destroying power and sealed the deal on being a whole new sense of creative, not just beast, with all the Kamidogus and their aspirations of living case, representation of realms and all aspects of, possible reality warping and what we do things like others, but with this being doing of like, centrally off the basis of him slowly becoming the One Being and being like Majin kind of slowly about to reform the realms in his image of this ridiculous record. He would not be on the same regards of the actual One Being. He's just coming with the sense of the circle of that energy of that. He's slowly starting into a new atmosphere of that like qualm, but most likely this is pretty much akin to being like the Elder Gods Amp Raiden. This is the One Being in physical form, that actual revive as an actual like conceptual beyond possibility of like general confines of reality. But Amp Shijinko, with everybody, was able to defeat this version of Onaga, as you see in the picture. So, yeah, he should just verbatim beat him. So I don't think I need to explain that. Then you have Blaze, was fated, prophesized, destined, narratively stamped, and by all sayings, to be the ultimate being of ridiculous form. This is Blaze Shao Kahn, who, by the case of the retcon scrap freeform change, somehow was able to best Blaze, and reasonably should be above him by the credit of besting him by the Blaze amp and coming with that power beyond compare and being semi, most impregnable, undefeatable sense to do. I mean, this man at this point was invincible. He was pulling all type of capabilities of the most ridiculous regard and whole Armageddon literally in the palm of his hand. So yeah, Taven would still be more strongly above him because not just only did he defeat Blaze and has his demigod to god armor, has techniques, capabilities, a sword, and a bunch of capabilities of a greater cracking of, the code for, pulling some form of like Percy Jackson, Kratos, sailing, the bag is not in this man's mind. He has great fortitude, solidifies hands, is a beast, tank and could slap around motherfuckers to a good regard, and was, again, by all fake claim of, his purpose as a person, was destined by all regards and by all accords to be the one to perfect against Blaze. Plus, just considering his ending, he's the man that would stamp his foot down and reconfiguring the realms and a new means, you know what I'm saying? Plus, also, he was the original person to win. So if you want to use a narrative outside the box of the argument, he is the guy that the original creators wanted to win. And crossing the verses, he has more essence of, like, a little bit, I feel like, prouder reasoning to properly be more as a sense of assessor and gradual preaker, like, being of, like, a multi different accolades of power before than him, because he has not only, again, the narrative segment tied with the case of argument that he was the guy to defeat Blaze. His ending is more consistent with what was the writing. The narrative argument is more consistent and more concretional, credit for violating not just all odds against him, but vanquishing Blaze and full absorbing his power into him and pulling new crafty capabilities in the future, or at least in the moment, that would redefine the world itself just like that. This man, Shao Kahn, was changed to be the guy to pull that, but his actions show him just hurling around the power on whatever case of cuffs. So if anything, Taven is given more promise and sentiment for actually being a true personification of omnipresent, like, pool of power, while this guy of, like, a random form of writing pick, because simply put, they wanted Shao Kahn to be the big bad, so they replaced Taven, disregarded all the narrative written before us, because when Mortal Kombat 9, aka 2011, came out, is ridiculous in, like, gap of time since Armageddon, right? Put him in the place of the shine of, like, powerhouse like no other, you know what I'm saying? They wanted him to be the big bad, so they put him in the personification of, the most highest grandstand for a villain to have, which in this case is being a immovable object, an impregnable foe of ridiculous form, right? But again, using the narrative argument, using the consistency to come in with an actual, I feel like, solid conclusion on who truly best who. You have a man with omnipresent sense of, fate bestowed to him, and can pull shit of that greater powerful pillar of, sink of power, while Guy is over here absorbing that power, holding a great deal of it, but not using it in the same whim of actual full fight or flight sense as him. Pretty much, to conclude, Taven has a full fling of, all the stones of the Infinity Gauntlet at his full disposal, while Shao Kahn is using it in a straight dummy form way of just creating a powerful extendurary stance of all that. He doesn't actually use it on the same creational glimpse as what the stones could actually be formally used for, right? So, yeah, I mean, he just isn't on the same case of level, using narrative, using consistency, using a rationale for that. And again, I just do not see this man Shao in any consistent way, regardless of giving him the benefit of doubt, being, because technically this nigga not even supposed to exist. We don't see what he does on a greater accolade of that power, and it doesn't take away the disregard, for the writing at hand. But I just believe full throttle, even if you try to equal things, Taven with his own capabilities and their form of shit, I feel like could full-fledged King Arthur switchblade this nigga down by the capabilities that he's shown. Plus, again, Blaze, who literally knows fate itself by the books, even though he said there was capability for someone else, knew Taven was going to beat him. But he said you had to do it. Like, you got to do it in action. I know you can do it, But it's because I know what's gonna happen. But can you actually do it though? You know, so like I don't know. That's just something I want to get out the way. 'Cause I've seen a lot of people, debate that. But yeah, it is what it is. The Elder Gods of the Nether Realm era should just be verbatim here, ball record. And even though this is technically supposed to be exclusive to the matter in the case of the second timeline, the third timeline would have seen the same cost of this matter. So I would say that this easy demonstration of what in true higher ground stand that the case of the Elder Gods, excuse me for the yawn, would be reasonably at. Chronica Titans slash Elder Goddess of Time. We should be here. Titans are above Elder Gods. She's above Elder Gods. All the Elder Gods are beneath her. They are minute to her in the grand scale. Time Keeper slash Time Controller Chronica is here. What happens in the case of the Crown and all time manipulation and pull shit on a more wacky regard. All these case of DLC characters best her in hypothetical sense. This is based off of their mythos and what they can do. Joker would best, her, by the case of, the obvious, ending. Rambo with his capabilities and feats. Terminator, RoboCop. This is the case of the Time Breaker, the Timekeeper versions. In the case of the Deadly Alliance with Quan Chi. The case of someone like Shang Tsung. These are scaled to each other and, could switch them out. Interchangeable, but reasonably the case of someone like Shang Tsung being here is that. Ghostface, the same. By the case of, the ending. You have Conan the Barbarian, by all accounts and record, best in them in the sense of the Deadly Alliance, slash the case of the Pyramid of Argus. Same thing goes for the T-100, 2000, or where the fuck his name is. Yeah, it's T-1000. Yeah, T-1000. T-100. It's not like some fucking gas that you want to go to T-100? Face it, T-1000. Then you have the case of the just Fire God Liu Kang that still is on the same residence of that power stand and has obviously still decent recuperation of that power that defeated Chronica, defeated the Alliance in his own hypothetical independent course into a matter of defeating the odds and things like that. And yeah, then you have Homelander, who wouldn't be best of these odds, and all these people are mixed back equal. I'm just going off of their hacks, capabilities, and what's shown in the endings. Because Homelander can kill this dude, would reasonably have him beat him. I just think Liu Kang, in his own credit, could best these people by all his capabilities, accolades, and using his ending. But using their ending that's a little bit more, fleshed out than these people, from what I've seen and heard, that's why it's like that. Peacemaker, same. Omni-Man, the same. Timekeeper, Shang Tsung. You have the case of Fire God Liu Kang, which should be obvious. He was able to defeat Chronica regardless if he had Timekeeper crown or not, like both of these two, and he defeated them. This is him with the Timekeeper thing, just up for him. This is Kratos, considering his Mortal Kombat 9 ending, and this is scaling in general. Spawn, considering the same stuff. I heard, Spawn with a greater role of, all his feats out is way more astonishing, more powerful than possibly Kratos, but y'all can discuss that in the comments. And Justice 2 Scorpion, because of all the Injustice 2 scaling and mixed perception of things that tie in the greater, bigger emphasis of, shit from DC Comics, even if it's just a specific Injustice, is crazy, especially considering the Trigon scaling. The Elder Gods of the old timeline have an argument for being the most powerful, in this case, a tier, by the record that they were able to take apart the one being, not by all account in a fight, making the mixed bag the second strongest, possibly in the verse. Depending how you stretch. But we obviously know who the true two is, right? It's more making 3. To be able to detach, displice, and break apart fundamental builds of a multiverse and be beyond different all qualms and comprehension of people of these forms, and pretty much can this simply disarray pretty much the verse at that point. Then it's the one being. He literally is the realms and the cosmology itself. No one should be able to hit this dude unless you're an outer god. And even then, the reason why no one of the Elder Gods' entire pantheon wants the realms to merge, because when they merge, he pops back into place. It pretty much disperses all matters of fragment of like life and existence itself, which can go for them. And by the ending, the one being is an unstoppable force. So, no, there's really no way anyone should be able to beat him. But Mocap is omnipotent. That's it. I love y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good night.